Another round will bring you down. Another round won't save you now.
Yeah, reverse sweep coming up.
Big win for the Camelot Kings here, Dan. The Valkyries have done it not since week 2. It is the deicide for the Oni Warriors, and they have pulled this game back from the brink.
But the rest of the Solar Scarabs follow up. Down go the Titan. And Lazarus got the first. What a 1-2 punch from the Bolts.
The damage from the Leviathans until Zapman puts them down with the snipe.
Defend their Titan, and the Tartarus Titan send us on to a game 3.
The Jade Dragons have come to play. 5 kills in 7 minutes.
Hello, SMITE fans, and welcome back to the SMITE Pro League, starting up week number 4 here in the SPL, powered by our good friends over at Alienware. If you go to smitegame.com/Alienware, you can get all the information on those new desktops, the monitors that you can pick up, the Aurora Ryzen 10, the 240Hz gaming monitor, and anything else that Alienware has to offer. Again, go to smitegame.com/Alienware. Use code SMITEAW. Get yourself a nice little discount. Follow them on their social medias at Alienware on both Twitter and Instagram. And go to AlienwareArena.com to see what else they had to offer, whether it be giveaways or any kinds of other cool announcements. Thank you again, Alienware, for being the title sponsor here for Season 8 of the SPL. And what a day for SPL. We're going to have the Jade Dragons and the Camelot Kings facing off for our first set of the day. And then we get to round it out with the Leviathans and the Oni Warriors. Mifflin joining me here on the desk to get ready to go into game number 1 of the day and talk a little bit about the week that we have ahead of us. Man, this is going to be a big week. Like, we got, what, 3 studio games this weekend?
3 studio. The entirety of tomorrow going to be played on LAN as well. I mean, this is a complete stacker, man. There's no, like, matches this week where you can say, maybe I don't watch this one. This is a must-watch week.
Yeah, I mean, we started with the Camelot Kings and the Jade Dragons. What a way to start the week. And then we get to close it with the Leviathans and the Titans. And then right in the middle of all of that, we have 2 studio sets between Dragons, Titans, Bolts, and Scaras. Those are all going to be high-octane matches. Let's take a look at the standings and see where everybody stands in line as far as it goes. Atlantis Leviathans at the top of the boards, 4-0. Somebody is going to try and shut them down this weekend, but they got 2 matchups. They can potentially extend that 2-6-0, and then, man, right there at the middle of the pack, 2 through 5. I say middle of the pack, but that's where everybody else is in the standings here. 3-1 to 3-2 across the boards there, and then rounding out the bottom end, the Warrior Scarabs, and then the Valhalla Valkyries, all looking to try and make something happen here before we go on to the group stage, because this is all just the first phase round robin, or the first half of the phase is these round robin matchups, all looking to get to that group stage.
And despite the fact that there's only a few weeks left, because there is so much parity within the standings, every single one of these sets has major implications for Worlds as it rolls around, for playoffs as well, for the group stages. So make sure you're rooting for your favorite teams, because they need every single bit they can get.
Yeah, especially both of these 2 teams playing today. Let's talk a little bit about the Jade Dragons, our first matchup here, and let's talk a little bit about the supports between them, because we've been seeing a lot of the shift in the jungle. That's been, the main topic since 8.9. But we've been seeing a lot of change-ups in the support role as well, and namely, PBM has had a couple of specific gods banned away from consistently, most namely to be this Geb that he pulled out in week number, I think it was week number 2 of play. He's been making this god look good ever since his adjustments.
Hey, how nice. In the very first clip, we get to see why Geb is starting to see some of those bans and picks. Now Cataclysm getting a little bit of additional damage, has the ability to find some of these kills, but PBM is going to do PBM stuff regardless. He loves that aggressive style play. How many other players are going towards the Achilles inside of sport? I'd argue just about none. PBM has been a consistent pillar for this team, and it's not just his play on field, which is phenomenal, by the way, but also the energy that he brings. You can see it every single time he comes in the studio. He's just a great vibe to have. I'm sure the team absolutely loves what he's bringing, and let's not forget some of that shot calling. Feels like sometimes in the green room I can hear him yelling throughout the entirety of the building.
Yeah, I mean, PBM just brings an entirely different vibe that so many other, I'm not going to say so many other supports don't bring, but it's just not so many players are able to bring out here. Just a very high level. I mean, he has a high level of charisma out there. Really brings out a huge god pool amongst for his teams, and is just able to bring a level of synergy that you really need for a team like this. Someone to kind of hold all these loose ends together, because you got some of the most loose cannon players in the league with Panda Cat and then even Stanford Soccer in the jungle. So somebody kind of hold them all together and maybe bring some of that shot calling in, as you're talking about, that veteranship he's had. He has been playing in this league for such a long time. Let's go ahead and talk to PBM just a little bit before he gets ready to jump into game. PBM, always good to have you here for these interviews. And first up, let's talk a little bit about these changes in supports, man. You've had this Geb kind of be a staple ban away from you. Talk to me a little bit about why Geb has kind of just been rising up so much.
Just his buffs in general, his ult doing a lot more damage makes him much better early, which is a weak spot in the past. The way the early game plays out in general, not being able to invade kind of helps him out. And on top of that, junglers being buffed makes Geb a little bit more valuable. He's just a very annoying pick for junglers to dive into. So just a bunch of meta shifts all across the game.
You guys are sitting right there at the very cusp of being able to take that number 2 seed, and you got to match up against another team trying to take that away from you here in that top 5. What's it going to take for you guys to maybe take that number 1 seed away from the Leviathans in the future, or maybe at least just try and maintain and hold that second spot?
I think Leviathans kind of have to choke really hard, honestly, to lose it, because I think every other team but us and actually I think Titans could get it, but for us to get number 1, they kind of have to choke. I think they have to lose 2 sets. So we're kind of just playing to be in the best position for group stage that we can. The seeding I don't think is as important as us just figuring out what we think of like the meta and matchups into specific teams.
Yeah. And with those changes of supports, and now with the kind of the 8.9 bonus coming around, Charybdis is now available. We talked a little bit on waiting room. Probably won't see her too much potentially, but as far as changes up in the support, do you think we'll be seeing Cirquette kind of transition more towards that traditional jungle, maybe kind of away from supports?
I don't know. Maybe it just depends on the player and the teams. I don't think I think she's just like a fine pick. I don't think she's super relevant or super like impactful in drafts, kind of.
Will you say the thing for us though, Mike? That's what everyone at home wants to know.
I don't know, man. Before games, no, I can't do it. I just can't do it.
All right, before the games,
maybe
if we see you after.
I can't do it.
Yeah, maybe if we see you after, maybe we can get to say then. Mike, I'll let you go ahead and get back with the rest of the team. Good luck in your game.
All right, thanks.
Didn't want to say it. Keeping his mental strong. Not going to do it just for the fans, just because the fans want to hear him saying. Nah, he's got a game to keep his mind on here.
Yeah, he's got to save that energy for the match itself. You think he's going to be saying aliens wear things unless it's in the comms? No, PBM, ever the veteran, knows when to hold them and when to fold them, and this time folds it.
He's going to have to go against a tough competition in the Camelot Kings. There's been a matchup between them, and talking about the support matchup in general, Genetics is no stranger to the ban column, similar to some of the players we got to see in SCC over the last couple of days. This is another player who has a lot of targeted bans towards him. I know in Phase 2, there was at one point where he had to go like 7 or 8 gods deep in the pool, and he's still able to pull out wins. Going to be a tough team to put some bans up against.
Yeah, between the community and the casters for this set, I'm the only one that went the way of the Camelot Kings, and that's a tri-fold kind of reasoning, I think. Genetics being probably 2 of those folds on his own. Despite playing on ping, despite having some issues in his regular life, he has still had some of the just most consistent play, I think, we've seen from support, full stop. The Sylvanas pulls have been ridiculous, honestly. I mean, if I loaded into a casual game and Genetics on the other side, I'd probably accuse him of cheating, is how consistent he is with these pulls. The Sylvanas pick has really elevated his play, and it feels like Genetics, as a player in general, really will mesh very well with this new Geb, Khepri, Sylvanas meta for these Guardians. So I've got great expectations for the Camelot Kings, and not just for Genetics, but also for the team as a whole. Worth noting, again, going into the last playoffs, they were the first seed. These guys are really, really strong inside of the regular season. It's more so that LAN phase where they start to struggle a little bit.
And they have been kind of the run killer so far. They've stopped 2 8-game winning streaks between these players, and maybe potentially can stop another one if the Leviathans go undefeated up and they somehow end up in the same group. All I'm saying is if the Leviathans make it to 7-0 at the end of this, they need to put the Kings in the other bracket. There's no way you want these guys to potentially stop another streak, but in this matchup specifically, these supports is going to be very high octane, very closely contested between the support picks. I think this Geb, Sylvanas, and Khepri, as you were kind of alluding to, this new guard, which is funny because they were the old guard, but now they're the new guard of the current meta at the moment. I think it's going to be a very highly hot pick between both of those, making sure you either grab one immediately or try and get rid of them as many as you can.
Yeah, generally in the SPL, we've seen Khepri get banned out pretty consistently, but between these two players, we know they're both capable, PBM and Genetics, of playing Geb at a very high level. Jade Dragons seem to eat those bans a little bit more often than some of these other teams, so I wouldn't be too surprised if we see him have to go a little bit deeper into the P's and B's, considering Genetics really is kind of that Sylvanas specialist. PBM loves that Geb. Maybe Khepri works his way through in some weird trick of fate, but we'll have to see once P's and B's start up.
And one thing that came up on Waiting Room was that I believe it was Sam has the most first bans up against him with that Hoon bots. Maybe we'll see if that slips through because we know both of these junglers really love that god. Let's hop right into picks and bans for game number 1 between the Jade Dragons and the Camelot Kings. I'm curious where everything is going to fall into place for them, between the supports, between this Hoon bots. I think that's probably my most curious topic as to where that Hoon bots. Is he going to make it through? If he does he get picked in that top 3, or maybe he makes it into the second phase of bans and gets a hit there?
Yeah, Hoonbots is in such an interesting position because a lot of people inside of the community or at the pro level, once this new assassin patch, I'm just going to call it the assassin patch from now on, rolled out, they were like, maybe Hoonbots is pretty good. I mean, he uses the whole maze tree pretty well, but so does like every single assassin. But he really has kind of skyrocketed himself through the standings of the individual power rankings of some of the junglers. I thought maybe we'd see a little bit more emphasis towards things like the Thor, but it really seems like generally it is the SEC that likes to go towards these semi-global ultimates. I thought Ratatasker would have a resurgence as well, as he was one of the standout assassins inside of 8.8. I thought with the changes in 8.9 would only make a strong god even stronger, but generally not seeing too much play there either. But as the ban phase has started to roll through a little bit here, Uul removed from the table. That's a hunter pick that has remained within the ban column. Transcendence plus Maze Tree turns him into not just a hunter, but also a mage, legitimately, with some of the damage output that he's able to bring. And Tiamat Kepri on the other side. So it is just that Sylvanas now, with Geb being banned out by the Kings, that is still available. And maybe I shouldn't talk about him because it seems like I'm calling for the ban. Sylvanas removed, so all of the new guard no longer available.
And the RDO taken out too, so it remains that 100% pick ban on this RDO, making sure that nobody has the opportunity to play as her or have to play against it. So we do see 4 Guardian bans. The RDO most likely more often than not kind of that solo lane selection, but it does leave one big solo laner up, a couple big solo laners. The Odin, namely, has kind of been that first one. Cerberus is still up for other solo lane options. We have been seeing some other warriors kind of pop in every so often here. Hercules kind of squeaks by occasionally. We've seen Tyr a few times. Even Nike has surprisingly been staying fairly relevant here in the solo lane.
Just so much survivability from Nike, I think, is the reason we see her. Plus, we do have that slight flex potential. Some people still taking her into the jungle occasionally means that this god is going to get a little bit more play than some of these others. Odin, though, being locked in by the Jade Dragons, I mean, there's a reason this god sees so much top pick potential. I mean, it is legitimately one of the few gods in the game that forces you to address the team fight in a completely different way. It's one of the few gods in the game that legitimately forces you to pick up a relic. Phantom essentially added a smite just to deal with Odin, and even with its inception, Odin is still incredibly dominant. Well, let's talk about dominance on the other side. Camelot Kings, they've got lane pressure, at least inside of the duo lane. Izanami, so hard to match up against. Even if you're drafting 2 pressure gods on the other side, I'd argue that Izanami might be able to match anything else on her own, and that's with support notwithstanding. The Kings still can go towards something that could help out there. Discordia, though, is not something I expected to see so high in the draft. I wasn't thinking the Kings, or I don't think, rather, the Kings are worried about it getting banned out. Maybe they're just waiting on a couple other picks in their own right. But great damage output, a passive that kind of boosts your early game as well. Discordia is certainly not bad, but top 2? I'm not sure.
I mean, it worked out fairly well for them up against the Warriors, able to, kind of do 2 35-plus minute bouts against them, and she can provide a lot of damage late game, but I'm kind of in agreement with you here. I don't think anybody's really looking at banning Discordia immediately out or picking it or really taking it away from, I would say, anybody but Big Man Tings and maybe Dart is the only 2 I would see really fighting over this god for the time. But on the other side of the board, it is Susano and Morgan Le Fay. Morgan Le Fay, interesting, because we haven't been seeing her very much. She was, at one point, a top 3 up there with Tiamat and Raijin. Tiamat banned away by the Jade Dragons. Raijin still left open, but it seems the Jade Dragons and Hurrywin specifically still want to kind of tear over towards this Morgan Le Fay. That does leave Terra open for a last pick before the second round of bans for the Kings. And as of recent, we don't really know if for sure this is going to be going support role. Could see some of that flex over in solo lane.
Yeah, Terra's so hard to lock down. She brings so much value to the solo or even the support. If you put her in solo lane, she gets a couple of levels more quickly, gets into that late game phase a little bit faster as well, and that means that Earthen Fury, your win button, is stronger once you do join that 5-on-5 engagement. So the Kings have got themselves a decent little flex pick here in the Jade Dragons. We'll see if they're willing to decide which way it's going. So far, it generally is just those jungle bans from them, Gilgamesh, and Loki removed from the table, so they're not really going to hedge their bets there. But to speak to your point, Morgan Le Fay, sure, doesn't see a lot of play in the SPL in general, but Hurrywin loves this pick, man. Dragonflight plus like Rune Mastery, you're like one-shotting whoever you want. The ultimate for survivability as well. It fits his playstyle incredibly well. Almost a pseudo-assassin, similar to Yanis in that if he's able to close gap into your backline, you're probably not going to have a backline much longer afterward. And we'll see what the answer is on the other side. Camelot Kings, keeping in line with the theming, take King Arthur.
Yeah, they're going to take the king himself. A couple of jungle bans by the Jade Dragons. They took Gilgamesh and Loki, both off the table. That leaves up the Cupid and Ares as a ban for the Kings. And the Cupid is just one of those, well, you look at what they're running with on the side of the Kings, and you just got to go ahead and ban it. That Fields of Love, such a big ultimate, such a giant circle that provides that cripple and really shuts down, well, it would have technically, I guess, all 4 of these guys. So maybe a wise ban for them. Also just taking a shot there at Panda Cat. So many things left open. Izanami as a first pick here by the Kings. Really one of the only teams who are probably going to top 2, and Izanami gets something comfortable for Netroid in that hunter role. But all this time we talked so much about the solo lane and the mid lane. We talked all about the supports earlier on. The 3 of the new guard got banned, but Yamoja was still left open and ended up gets 4th picked here by the Jade Dragons, 8th pick overall. And Panda Cat, well, Panda Cat doesn't care about what you ban away. Sure, you take away the Uller, that's kind of the top hunter at the time. You ban the Cupid because it's wise against your team, but there's so many things open for Panda Cat, and it's looking like an AMC as a 5th and final pick for the Jade Dragons to round out that duo.
I might stand corrected a little bit here. Yamoja plus AMC together might be able to match some of that lane pressure that Izanami and Terra are going to be bringing, assuming that this Terra is headed for the support role. And with King Arthur on your side, I think that's a fair assumption to make. But AMC up against a Daji probably doesn't feel so good, right? I mean, you've got the gap closed with the Trickster Spirit. You're immediately going to like 1,000 cuts. AMC sure has a little bit of mobility thanks to having Hives giving him a movement speed, but he doesn't have any CC immunity in the kit. He's going to get slammed by Palau. Yamoja doesn't have any CC immunity in the kit. He's getting slammed by Palau. Same could be said of Susano and Odin. It's just Morgan Le Fay using that ultimate to escape the CC of the King's jungler. This draft right now, I think that the Jade Dragons, if they pull a lead, they probably run away with it. I mean, it's early game aggression from Susano. AMC has great late game scaling. You've got decent pressure in the early game thanks to Yamoja. 2 immeasurable giant walls between the Ring of Spears and Yamoja's ultimate, forcing out those phantoms throughout these team fights. But if they don't hit the ground running, I'd say the other side, they've got some great tools inside of the team fight. Not just this Daji, but King Arthur is going to have a great time once he closes gap on an AMC. How does that god escape you between the slows, the knockups, the cripples, the stuns, taking you to Avalon? It just feels like the Kings, if they are able to extend this game to around the 25 or so minute mark and maintain at least equity, maybe around 3,000-4,000 gold down, I'd say, they're probably feeling pretty good about their odds.
Yeah, I think it's big that you bring up the Phantom here, because in the past we've seen, okay, it's an Odin, maybe we get Phantom, maybe we don't, maybe it just depends on how fast we can burn those cages down. But we've been seeing a lot more Phantoms for just Yamoja herself, which is interesting because it's only 2 walls compared to a full ring that you have to find a way out of. And now that you couple those together, this almost screams that you have to go Phantom against this, especially when Daji naturally herself can only get out by using the ultimate just to immune the damage, so she's not actually going to really get out without using ultimate. It's only Izanami and Discordia who are going to be able to jump themselves out of these cages, jump themselves out of these walls. So I'm kind of expecting there has to be a Phantom in this game. We'll see if the Kings decide to go with that here in game number 1. The Hoonbots kind of, I'm actually a little surprised Hoonbots didn't even get looked at by any of these teams. It was a Loki and a Gilgamesh ban up against Captain Twig, and by taking the Susano, you take 2 of his top 3 that he's played this phase so far. The Hoonbots gets left open, but decides he wants to go with the Daji. Maybe he's tired of getting bullied on the Hoonbots a little bit and wanted to pick up the Daji, the guy that kind of bullied right back at him.
Yeah, Daji does look very good for this Camelot Kings draft, but speaking of the Jade Dragons and Sanford Soccer's propensity to go towards that Hunbots, I think Susano just has a great matchup into Discordia. You use that leap, you're sitting inside the stealth. The second ability of Susano is the entire duration or length of that stealth. You just pull her right out of it and continue down that chase. Sure, you've got a cripple from the Golden Apple, but if you're able to beads that one out, your damage output on Susano with the 8.9 changes to junglers is just enough, I'd say, to find some pretty easy solo kills on your own in the backline.
That's game number 1 of the Jade Dragons and Camelot Kings of our first set of the day. Let's throw it right over to Dolson and Gormizer to kick it all off.
First set of the day, first set of the weekend, and there's already action. PBM over on the Camelot Kings side of the map. And Genetics and Netroid gonna send some damage his way. Can he get out? Genetics will slow down PBM. First blood right around the corner. Healing comes out. Wall dodged out. Mike with the med is going to walk away from this one. Gutsy for Mike, and it looks like he was able to steal it away. See if Netroid goes back for it. Doesn't look like he's going to be able to, so a great play to start off this game. The Jade Dragons Gore, who I haven't even been able to introduce yet. Good start here for PBM.
Yeah, I mean, does exactly what you would want from a steal like that. You walk forward,
you take it. I mean, being able to get out alive. Good body blocks. I actually have to give a lot of shout-outs to Genetics. Despite the fact that they aren't able to get the kill, they control that a lot. And if it weren't for the fact that that cooldown is off right there, also the fact that Yemoja can just spam things for funsies, he's probably dead, but not having the walls for the first few seconds makes it a lot more difficult for it to fully connect. He gets out with his life, the experience, the buff. Well, maybe not the buff, but he's still got the experience from the buff, and that's what matters.
You sure did, and so a small lead for the Jade Dragons in the first couple minutes of this matchup, Gore. And how impactful is this matchup when you really think about it? I mean, you are talking about you're gunning for those top 2 spots here to be able to pick the groups for the other teams, and there was some importance to that over in Phase 1. What did we say on the waiting room? 4 of the top 5 teams all have 3 wins right now, 2 of them playing in this matchup. Yep. And so important for both of these teams to get a win and make life a little bit more comfortable for yourself in the group stage.
In fact, I have to remember off the top of my head, I believe the Dragons are at 3-1, the Kings are at 3-2.
Yes,
so it's
right,
like one of those, like
more.
the Kings have that one extra game
right.
on them, but with that, I mean, you get a win here, all of a sudden, for either of these teams, you're tied at least in wins for the Leviathans, you move up a little bit in terms of the standings. But like you said, a lot of these little, or at least what feels like little details matter.
Action on the right. Variety looked at by Sam and taken down by Sam. You thought there might be first blood on the left. Instead, it happens over on the right, and it's the Susano getting active early, and that is fantastic for the Jade Dragons. Gore, the desk set up this topic of conversation, the Susano and the ability to drive some of this early game pressure. And the Jade Dragons, Sanford Soccer, punish Variety early. Netrioid able to dodge out the stun there from PBM, so no second blood to be had over here on the left, but a great start for Fine OK on the right side.
Yeah, and honestly, that opens up a lot. He does still have the buffs that are coming up on that side, so I expect him to make another rotation back over there. But realistically, Twig, he's going to play a huge role in this, but it's once Palau comes online. And it's built around that Palau because the lack of CC immunity that you're going to see. I mean, there's a lot of beads, but not enough that I think is going to keep the Dragons as safe as they could be up against the Dodgy and the Palau. So expecting to see Twig come online a little bit later, this is the point where Sam, I mean, immediately is going to be able to start taking at least a little bit of control.
Well, here you go. Send some pressure BMT's way. Just going to force the dash on out. And a conversation that we've been having around this Camelot Kings team, and specifically Twig, Gore, was we know how the Warrior meta looked for Twig and the Kings out of the jungle. How does he adapt? How does he look on the assassin-y style of play? And I talked to Adapting on APAM's podcast this week, the SPL Rundown, and Adapting was like, yeah, I mean, it's actually a pretty decent, size change. The pacing of the game changes, when you can find those pressure points, how you play the team fights. Like, a lot of it changes for these junglers, and Twig, by his own self-admission, had said, look, it's been a rough transition. It's taken some time to get used to. And I think that once he really hits his stride, and Twig has looked good. I remember last weekend he had a fantastic game on one of the assassin picks. I was able to help out the Camelot Kings. Was going to get your thoughts on it, but might not have time because Sanford Soccer has made his way right back to the right side of the map. Just enough mana for Final K to get the cage down. Typhoon out onto Variety. But Final low and Variety lives on.
No mana for Sam as well. Really solidifies that one. That's a great play from Variety to go up into the air with him. Just make sure that the lockdown exists. And admittedly, just so he stays out of that damage range a little bit longer while the Odin cage is down.
Hurrywind jumped on by Captain Twig. And Hurrywind will waltz on out. Use the ultimate there just for a little extra CC immunity, just in case. And so both junglers score getting very active early on in this game, in a decent little early power spike here for Sanford Soccer, able to go back, pick up that crusher. And so the activity, once that ultimate is back up, might see him shift over here towards right again. That's where we've seen Sanford Soccer a little bit early on in this game. Beads are down for Variety for a little bit. That said, this King Arthur is going to be harder to kill as the minutes go on here in the early game.
Yeah, the longer that it takes, I mean, already he's just got one tier 2 item, but we saw you with just your ult and admittedly a lack of the shield explosion. Variety was able to walk out just fine during the Odin cage. And now Genetics is all the way over here? I mean, they're doing their best.
You think
to make
solo
sure that
laners
that's not
hate
gonna be
this?
Like
why is everyone in my lane, right? Like, everyone's rotating to right. I don't want get Sam. I just want to farm up. I don't want Genetics over there. I don't want Sam over here. Maybe a little annoying, but Genetics will leave. Head on back to mid lane.
I can hear the carries saying, yeah, how do you think we feel?
Panicat maybe more so than Netrioid. This AMC has got to play extra safe. Anyone extra
over on the left side of the map is going to make AMC just a little bit more uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It feels like this pick, though, has been like a Panda Cat exclusive. I'm trying to think of anyone who's played AMC outside of Panda Cat, maybe one or two that are escaping my mind. But whenever I see Amuz and Cobb locked in, 99 out of 100 times it's going to be Panda Cat.
And you know what? He's played it really well. That's the thing that makes it so interesting to me is that there's a lot of ability hunters. I think, you look at Scotty, Barra played that. And there are some that are less meta, is the best way to describe them, where they're not necessarily going to be the best of the best. But they're not that bad either, right? And I think Amuz and Cobb falls into that. In the right hands, especially if he gets a lead, which right now he has a little bit of a lead over Netroid, just a small one in terms of experience. But with the way the build has gone as well, it really does help favor how hard Panda Cat and specifically Amuz and Cobb can trade things.
Wow, Sanford Soccer and Genetics have spent a decent time over here on left. Netrioid, privy to it, Genetics as well. And so the Izanami will dash on out and dash away. Izanami was at the forefront of the conversation when the bow build was the most popular and has sort of still remained in that conversation where Crusher still works pretty well. The attack speed's always going to feel great. BMT not feeling great right now. Apple no good. Will Hurrywin hit the last bit of damage? The last ultimate doesn't connect, but he reads it well, and Big Man Tings walks into the dragon, and Hurrywin picks himself up a kill.
Oh, they plop a ward onto the speed buff. If he waited, what is that going to be, like 15 more seconds? Admittedly, a long time to just sit in the enemy jungle. You'd be able to strip
Might have been
that
a solo.
one away.
Nobody else got an assist for that.
Now PBM's over here. Again, this is the thing that's been interesting me the most is seeing these supports now, especially with Twig here. This could actually be a good powwow opportunity.
Yeah, Twig jumps on Polar Bear Mike, who does not have beads, and a lot of that CC connecting onto Yamoja early, but Final K has enough pressure to make Variety back off. In the cage he goes, and there's a lot of damage onto this King Arthur. Final K puts him down, and they just walk at the solo laner of the Camelot Kings. Genetics is rotating in from left as well. Palau will pull two in here shortly, but I don't think Genetics has the damage to keep things going here. A great rotation in from Mike.
And I like that in more ways than one. Even without player cams, you could see Mike and Fine-OK in-game turn to look at each other like, so we're about to get pulled, huh?
Yeah. What's up, man?
Yeah,
First time.
Doesn't mean too much, though. And now they're laying in wait. This is actually
nice.
a brilliant trap. They have a little bit of a ward on the speed buff, so they should be able to find something.
He blinks in, looking for the 1v1. Typhoon flies out,
my
knock
God.
up, down goes Twig. Big play from Sanford Soccer. Might have even gotten the speed buff as well, but now the chase is on. Variety and Genetics in a 2 versus 3, but the Jade Dragons happy to take those numbers. Big Man Tings could be the difference maker with a rotation in from mid.
PBM's going to get taken down, though, and Fine-OK's low.
Big Man Tings is able to make an impact on this fight. Now the apple is out, and Hurrywind left scattering to the wind. Stun out, knockup is there onto Variety. Final K sends the spear on through, but Big Man Tings with the stripe makes Hurrywin pay. The Camelot Kings show up in force.
You go in, you kill the jungler on the other side. You admittedly just killed Variety again as well, so you're feeling, I think, good if you're the Dragons, but nowhere near as good as a good grouping from the Kings there, showcasing what Tings is able to bring into the fight despite losing your jungler early on. I mean, that is good control from Genetics as well. That's pretty much exactly what you need to see from your mid laner. Unfortunately, the Morgan Le Fay didn't quite hit as hard, I think, as expected. I mean, player damage-wise is number 2 on the charts, but needs more.
Can we do this? Variety low on mana. Final K tanking up the tower. Sanford Soccer has just got to auto-attack. Variety on down. He's going to fall. Variety trades out 1 for 1. I mean, that's the best you can do in a situation like that if you're Variety. You got low health, nearly no mana. Sanford Soccer's on your side of the map, and these teams will not give us a moment. Hurrywind attempting to secure his own red buff. Now jumped on by Twig and Netrioid will notch his first kill of the game.
Yo, but also shoutouts to Hurry. Did get the red buff. He dropped his buff. He's just not going to be able to use it, and has to spend this time in the grayscale screen. This is actually good control, honestly, not just for the purple buff invade, but realistically, you could probably pressure a Gold Fury from this kind of position if you were the Kings. I think they're going to play it a little more safe than that, knowing that, first off, Panda Cat still exists over here, but that there could be a rotation from Sam. There's still a good team grouping from the Dragons, just maybe not the exact same that you would want, lacking Hurrywind in that fight. So, good showcase, like you said, not really letting up. Both of these teams have been very aggressive, good at invades. At this point, you're looking at the experience shifting slightly in favor of the Dragons, although looking at the mid diff, yeah, Big Man Tings is really, really pulling his team back on that one. Most of the Dragons have a lead, except for mid lane. Oh, and now Netroid has actually been able to take his away as well. So they're keeping a lot of that on their side. Level 12 to level 10. You can really feel that, at least so far, this Discordia has been able to make a bigger impact in a lot of these individual team fights. We got that one good play from Heroin a little bit earlier.
Yep.
And I expect we're going to see more of that. But Strife and the damage numbers that Discordia puts out are just too much to handle sometimes.
Yeah, we're about as even as we were when we first loaded into the game, outside of some individual level discrepancies. 2 levels in solo is going to kind of counteract the 1 to 2 levels in mid. And that's been obvious, right? It's not like we need to interview the Jade Dragons and ask what their game plan has been this game, because it has been put pressure on Variety, on this King Arthur. Let's get it as far behind as we can. It's 1, 3, and 2 right now. So 1.5 to 2 levels down, depending on where the wave is, where the farm is. And so they've done their job. And maybe that's important because King Arthur has not been the most popular solo lane pick by far here recently.
Not at all.
But the potential still is there. I mean, if this type of pick is able to stay even and even get a little bit ahead if you get some pressure from Twig, something like that. Variety, the type of player, on King Arthur, the type of pick that can really run a game. And so the Jade Dragons maybe put their pressure in a good spot.
Plus, this isn't a pick, it's like you said, maybe not the best of the best when it comes to the solo lane as of right now, but it has been one of the top picks for Season 8. Even with some nerfs when he disappeared for a little while, you still get to see the impact that he has. Good control over the lane. He's 1 and 3, but he still now has actually caught up to what you're going to be seeing out of FineOK on the other side. So you get really good performances from the King Arthur so far.
Yep.
And admittedly, this isn't even the part of the game that I'm looking to him towards. I think his late game team fight is so immensely helpful, what he's able to do in terms of diving deep into certain players, as well as just taking someone out of the fight or choosing someone. In this case, you know, Heroin's got to be worried, Panda Cat's got to be worried. I'm also a little thrown off by this, because it's not just Variety and the CC he's going to bring later, but I've kind of expected to see more Twig on the left-hand side of the map, and we haven't seen any
Especially
over there
with AMC.
for the ganks.
Yeah, with AMC and Mike going with Med instead of Beads early on here, you'd wondered if you would see the Camelot Kings jungler put some pressure there. Granted, he tried to match the pressure of Sanford Soccer, who's been over on the right a good bit of the time, and Speed Buff got sat on once or twice. So the fact that level-wise Twig is even, maybe you're feeling all right. Sanford Soccer, unfortunately, on a ward for the time being, so the Camelot Kings will not be surprised by this Susano heading straight through the jungle, and instead, Captain Twig has the ability to jump on him for it. Mike here sends some healing out Sam's way, but the healing not necessary. And so the Camelot Kings thought they had a moment. Captain Twig spends the blink. You'll head on back. And looking at PBM, Gore, a bit of a different look at the support build path here. We've seen a lot of Lotus Crowns recently on these healing supports into Thieves. That's exactly what Genetics has gone for. We're not going to get a chance to talk about it any further because, yet again, Variety jumped on, and for the 4th time this game, the King Arthur has been put down. Now, there have been moments where that's happened, and the Kings have answered back with kills elsewhere, but kind of the opposite. There's still pressure for the Jade Dragons in mid.
And I like the fact that they're playing this. I mean, if you can shut down Tings, that really does disrupt it. With Variety dead, that'd be the first big neutral objective. I mean, that Gold Fury's been sitting there tantalizing, but nobody's been able to make the rotation. Now FineOK's over here. This is a good fight to take. Yeah,
great opportunity. 10 seconds left on the respawn from Variety. The Camelot Kings are here. You have some ranged damage if you want to steal it away. Netrioid's got that dark portal, but the Jade Dragons, look, they're pushing forward outside of the Gold Fury pit. Genetics dashes in. Netrioid's got a kill in the backline on a Sanford Soccer, and it is answered back. As Genetics falls down, Captain Twig rotating in, has the Palows, and the Jade Dragons thinking twice, but FineOK didn't get the memo. He's caged in too, and he's got a great chance at a double kill here. Netrioid locked in place, will dash on away. Panda Cat locks off the escape, and Hurrywin gets the kill.
That's such a good cage. I mean, the rest of the Dragons, you had called it. They're backing off. They didn't seem like they wanted to commit to the fight. Hurrywin now might be in a little bit of trouble. This is what Variety can bring.
Yeah, Variety on this King Arthur has been behind all game long, but now the rest of the Dragons are going to deal him his 5th death of the game. This is unreal. Variety has not had the opportunity to play Smite in game number 1. 14.5 minutes in, 1 and 5 on the King Arthur, and it took a little bit of time, Gore, but the Jade Dragons will get back, and they will take down the Gold Fury.
That's just a good cage from FineOK to really help solidify that, but Variety dies, comes back, dies again, because nobody else on the Kings wanted to fight. He walked into him, and admittedly, look, 1-on-1, Variety versus Hurrywin, Variety wins that fight. 2-on-1, maybe it's a little closer, right, all of a sudden. 4-on-1, you're going to lose that 8 ways to Sunday, and so 1 and 5, he is 5 of the 9 kills. Everybody else on the Kings has only died once. But I think that is a good showcase for where the Dragons have been putting their pressure. They're shutting down Variety. They recognize that if they slow him down, Terra can do a lot. Nowhere near as much as what I think King Arthur can do in some of the disruptive backlines that we've seen in the past. And so realistically, you've got good control. Once again, you've got to look at it. One death thrown onto Netroid doesn't necessarily push him behind, but Pandacat hasn't had any pressure over there. PBM's been able to survive through a lot of these fights. I mean, the Dragons are just dealing with the solo laner and then finding whatever happens afterward.
They have been, and they are out. I mean, I was going to say a commanding lead. Maybe for the Jade Dragons, 2.2k is a commanding lead as far as gold goes. XP still kind of bouncing back and forth. But the type of lead 15 minutes in that the Jade Dragons more often than not are able to capitalize on. Oh my god. This is absurd. It's another jump onto Variety here. Cage is there for FineOK, but maybe we finally reached the point, Gore, with Shield plus Sovereignty plus level 13 that it's going to be hard to kill this King Arthur. Maybe a little more space in that lane and you are going tower diving. But poor Variety, maybe poor Pandacat here. The slow does connect. Captain Twig is in. Pandacat's Aegis avoids a lot of damage, but is it enough? For the time being, yes, a little bit of healing, but not enough. And Captain Twig, Gore, for the first time this game, makes something happen on left and able to punish the immobility of the AMC.
Been real curious as to where that's been sitting for the last 16 minutes, and, well, we finally get an answer. He was just laying in wait. Still capable of doing it and does it incredibly quickly in terms of getting the kill there. Good pressure for Netroid as well. Shutting down the AMC. Didn't turn around anywhere near as much damage, I think, as Pandacat had wanted to, but I believe the ult was just a little wide, and so it didn't connect as much as he wanted. Speaking of ult, Mike's in mid, trapping too.
Gore, these teams are just scrappy here today in a good way. They want to fight. And the Jade Dragons will send out the River's Rebuke. Apple out from Big Man Tings. And it looks like we may finally simmer down here a bit in mid. Captain Twig is in behind, but speedy on this Daji, depending on the pathing. Depending on if FineOK wants to spend the blink or not, Twig could be in some trouble. Cage down from FineOK. Twig does not have ultimate, does not have beads, does not have a chance. Sanford Soccer now 4-2-2 on the Susano, and just a bit out of position is the Daji.
And I gotta say, just a bit out of position is maybe the best thing. That Cage, if it's like even a foot further closer to the Fire Giant, I think Twig's dash range is just enough to get him out of there. Like, I think he has opportunities to disengage. And so that just works out wonderfully. Whether FineOK, well, ask him calculated. Realistically, just happened to get the Cage down just in time to make sure that they're locked down. And now he's able to rotate. I mean, this is what's insane. Look where FineOK's pressure is. He's on the left side.
It has been non-stop between Sanford Soccer and FineOK. Sam gave Fino this lead on right, didn't hand it over to him easily, but helped FineOK garner this lead. And now the Odin is literally just everywhere. Moments ago was on the right side of the map setting up a kill. Now he's over here on the left side of the map helping the tier 1 tower go down. Does have the Cage. And Gore, we did wonder if we would see Phantom prioritization, because you talk about the Cage, you also talk about the River's Rebuke.
Yeah.
Both difficult to get out of on their own without the assistance of Phantom. And the Kings will have to do it without the assistance of Phantom. All 10 relics opted for, 0 out of 10 Phantom.
And a few of them can leap out. You know, Daji,
that's true.
Like,
You're
assuming someone's there, can get through. But Discordia, Izanami should be able to.
That's right.
Unless they get their dash caught by the Odin. But at the same time, it's pretty high risk. I mean, you're using your one escape tool now, guaranteed at a very usually early engagement in the fight. And we've only really seen, like, no offense to Mike, he's thrown up some River's Rebukes, but, like, the good ults have been FineOK's. Like, those have been the good walls right now. We haven't had a River's Rebuke that's been game-changing, despite him locking down 2 or 3 people and a couple of them. That's what I'm worried about is, you know, you transition to this late game, and then, cool, you dashed out of FineOK. Well, now there's a River's Rebuke up. Or vice versa. A River's Rebuke, you dash through, and then FineOK just leaps on you, blinks on you, drops his Cage. I think there's a lot of merits. A Phantom, even if you just had one, doesn't have to be used for both ults. Theoretically, it would help you get out of at least one of them.
It might help.
And so we'll see. I don't know. It's one of those things that could come back to bite the Kings, but at the same time, they've got a really good team fight as well. Twig should be able to burn a lot of beads. There's now 4 of them online, so that's probably what his main goal is going to be. Terra ult is really good in these team fights. And I've been talking a lot about the Discordia and the King Arthur. Despite the fact that Variety's 1 in 5, I do still expect a lot as we start to hit this 20-plus minute mark to see Variety and to see Big Man teams really help change up the fight if FineOK doesn't get a like picture-perfect engage.
I can't believe Variety is top damage in the game. Variety's got 400 more damage than FineOK at this point in the game. Granted, he's been doing a lot of fighting, and it is King Arthur, so you do look to get a lot of damage here at this point.
Let it be known that if Variety's going to die 5 times, he's going to die 5 times with a fight.
With a fight. And he has, right? He turned around 1 kill, he got tower dove, and ended up picking up 1. So Variety hasn't made it easy on the Jade Dragons. But everyone is here for this one. All 10 players in the game, all on the left side of the map by this Primal Fury. Cage down from FineOK, and it's on to Captain Twig, who's got to get out, and he will use the dash to get out and away. So Cage down, Primal Fury reset by the Jade Dragons. Genetics closing the gap, and FineOK is commanding the presence of all 5 Camelot Kings right now, and the Jade Dragons are just putting their damage into the Fury, into the back though. Genetics blinks through, massive Earthen Fury onto every one of the Jade Dragons. He'll dash through, River's Rebuke from Mike delays out this fight, but not for much longer. Dark Portal from Netrioid strikes Patered up into the powwow as Captain Twig. A second wind is what the Camelot Kings need in this fight, and he'll crash down without getting anyone.
And now the chase is on. I mean, Twig is isolated. You've gone 1 for 1, but they could make this a little bit more favorable. A good blink from Twig gets a disengage, but realistically, and trying to juggle that, slightly more favorable, maybe for the Dragons? I don't know. It's weird when it's a 1 in 6 King Arthur.
Right.
I don't know how that weighs. Granted, it's a support on the other side. It's always worthwhile if you kill anyone that's not the support. And with Genetics as low as he is, this actually might be a mistake.
Wow, Sam for Soccer's got plenty of damage here. He will just auto-attack Genetics on down. So an attempted steal that's not to be. So Fury plus kill for the Jade Dragons.
Definitively worth for the Dragons now.
Now,
You lose
yes.
Mike, but
Right.
you get a Fury and 2 kills. But you might lose the Fire
Whoa,
Giant.
what a call!
From the King!
Whoa, I didn't even realize
is
this was happening.
brilliant.
Unreal.
I mean, that is about as magical as it could get. Unfortunately, they mistimed it slightly. Variety doesn't get it, but you still
They
have
just want it.
You still have it on Tings, you still have it on Netrioid. And maybe the most important thing, the Dragons don't have it on anybody.
Right.
That is realistically where that win comes from.
Wow, what a call
Look at
from
the
the
gold,
Camelot
it's the
Kings.
same.
It was actually, I would like to see the gold charts because it was, you look at it, it was like 2.5, 3K a second ago. We're at 400 now. And the Kings are in charge of the XP lead. That Fire Giant call flips this game on its head. The Jade Dragons spend...
That was nuts.
Can you even say they spend too much time around the Fury? The Kings just disengage.
No, like a cut off the Fire Giant, and everything about that was standard Smite.
Right? Right. The Dragons, I don't even know if they spent too much time there. They just did the Fury. And when the Dragons thought the Kings were backing to reset, the Kings instead went on over to the Fire Giant. What a call from the Camelot Kings. And you could argue, Gore, the Kings are on the front foot for a little bit here. You've got Netrioid with FG, you've got BMT and Captain Twig with the Fire Giant. 3 great targets to have that on. And the Jade Dragons got to defend their base. They got 3 tier 2s and a tier 1 on left that are soon to fall.
And when you look at the map state, that's exactly what it is, right? 4 towers versus 3. Like, you're not so vastly separated from these 2 teams that, this isn't a small Fire Giant. Like, this is going to be a big deal in terms of the map play. At least in opening up a Phoenix, plus the gold is still roughly the same after this tower. It should pretty much go right back to equal.
Oh my god.
This is going to be a huge swing in favor of the Kings. If they get a good team fight under a Phoenix, they could end the game now.
Variety feeling a little less bad. I mean, the KDA still doesn't look great, but the build is caught up a little bit. The levels are even to FineOK. The King Arthur back in a position where he can make an impact in the game and on these fights. And the Camelot Kings right back in it and then some. The map state even as far as towers go. And you've got a little bit more time on this FG buff. Actually, a couple minutes still remaining. Not without a fight, though, are the Jade Dragons. And FineOK has done, Gore, an incredible job delaying out the team fight of the Camelot Kings. Think back to that Primal Fury fight. FineOK is zoning out 5 members of the Kings for what felt like an hour. You know, in game time, it was maybe 10 seconds, but that is a while. And this Odin at 307 has been a problem. That's about the Jade Dragons being able to rally behind that and make use of the space.
And that's what makes this even more impressive, right? You had mentioned, like, not only pulling 5 eyes, but right now it just feels so ridiculous to be able to do a 5-on-5 where you're defending. Admittedly, only 3/5 of them have Fire Giant, but still, you're stopping a Fire Giant team from even stepping into the tower line, let alone trying to take it. Now they're going to be able to engage.
Netrioid, have you overstepped?
That's a good cage.
3 members of the Camelot Kings in the cage. Hurrywind will send some damage their way. Good AoE out of the Morgan Le Fay. And a soft defense turns into a bit of a scrap for the Jade Dragon. San for Soccer in and out. And at half HP, 3 members of the Camelot Kings will have to leave. But is this a pump fake? The Camelot Kings did this around the FG. You can maybe re-engage here. You got some sustain with Genetics.
I think they've got the capability to keep the minions right where they want them, but nothing more than that, as we just saw. Although burning, well, only 1 ult from the Dragons. Feels like it should be enough. It depends on this loop. Variety. He will be pinged. Little hives from AMC do give ward vision. So they know he's back there, but that's going to be the go button for the Kings.
I mean, and what a roller coaster of emotions for Variety. He's been on the back foot, but now he has a chance to drive the back line. Him and Panicat dueling it out. Big powwows out from Captain Twig. Will force some beads. The apple no good from Big Man Tings. Twig is on the escape. Polar Bear Mike on the offensive. The tower falls, score, but that was a costly tower. No one dies. Fire Giant soon to wear off. In fact, it does as I finish that sentence. In control of this game, right back for the Camelot Kings. This game has been flipped on its head.
They dropped 4 ults. Good news is since Fire Giant just wore off, they've got 60 seconds before there's going to be a big objective right there. And realistically, most of those ults will be back by then. I think Genetics might be waiting a little bit, and same thing for the powwow. They'll have most of them by the time a fight actually breaks out, if they're not ready when the Fire Giant itself lands. I'm more interested in watching the Dragons pathing through the jungle here, because we know that Primal Fury and exactly when it's going to be respawning, right around the same time as this Fire Giant, as it looks out. Same thing for this Pyromancer. It seems like the Dragons are, and this is the play that I admire the most, they're focusing more on the right-hand side. They recognize this, this is the place you need to be if the Kings are going to be sneaking any objectives.
Yeah, I don't want to be on left anymore if only a few members of the Camelot Kings even are still on the map. Good damage on the Captain Twig. This is a fantastic start.
Good cage
for the Jade Dragons. Twig dashes on out. His final cage drop the cage. Double walls, doesn't find much. The Camelot Kings able to stay out. Oh, but it's a huge bolt from Zephyr Soccer, but he is deleted by Netroid. Netroid turns it around. Double kill for the Camelot Kings Hunter. And the rest of the fight feels like it's going purple. The Jade Dragons on the retreat.
I mean, this is exactly what you want from Netroid. That was insane how quickly Fino K's health bar just disappeared. Hurry's waiting deep in the jungle.
He's got damage. Big Man Tings walking out of base. Hurry Wind, the rare mid lane 1v1, and he is chasing down and taking down BMT, and a good return kill for the Dragons.
I'll give it to him. I think BMT's a lot of where their burn is going to be.
Can he do it
Unless
again?
Unless he gets caught out, because Netroid's right here. Yeah, Netroid's going to do it.
Can you do it again? It's a dash through from Netroid, and Netroid gets all 3. The Camelot Kings put down the Jade Dragons. Only 2 survive, and it's the duo lane. And it is a Primal Fury for a Fire Giant yet again. And the Camelot Kings in control. Only Big Man Tings will be without this Fire Giant. And the Jade Dragons thinking about Phoenix defense.
I'm going to make a blanket statement about the Kings that I think is true regardless of their composition. As if they make it to late game, which is where they prefer to play, and in fact their style pushes them there.
Yep.
If Netroid doesn't die in the first 10 seconds in a fight, the Kings win that fight. Like it almost always seems to be that way because he is the turnaround. Well, we talked about it for a while. He's playing Rom. He switched to the Izanami one time. It has benefited it. It just feels like if Netroid gets a pick he is comfortable on, he can be the reason they win. Now, I will also say, I've seen plenty of games this year from the Kings where Netroid has been the reason they lost.
Absolutely.
But I think the side of which he is the one and main contributor to some success, those happen way more often than not.
Yep. And he has been a...
Especially lately.
Agreed. And think back to like the beginning of the year. We knew that this team, the Camelot Kings, had the potential to be good. You know, you get kind of this...
They just did it from the get-go.
Right,
that was weird.
Right, they kind of had this amalgamation of guys who are like, look, I don't know. I mean, I guess some of them played together before. Like, you kind of got this weird assortment of players who were all good in their own right, but they were part of... It
still kind of feels like a team we'd put together for a charity event.
Right? Doesn't it?
It's like, hey, we grabbed some of the best players across the leagues. Like, well, they also happen to be a team.
Like, what a fun duo lane Genetics and Netroid is. And they've had great synergy all year long. It has been wild, but an absolute treat to watch this Camelot Kings team not only feel good from the get-go, but somehow get better as the year has gone on. You got to close out a game here where you're in the lead. You got 4 with Fire Giant. This is the game. This is the type of game that you feel like you should win. But the Jade Dragons, they're a team that will not give up easily. We've seen some good engages from Fino K, even Sam for Soccer, and I think back to that double kill from Netroid. It was off of a great engage from Sam, but didn't collect.
We get to see the big difference, I think. Tier 2 and mid going down so quickly kind of showcases the scale of power here now that's in favor of the Kings. Before, the Dragons not only could stand up to them, but now they have to be a little bit more worried.
Whoa,
This objective's going to help.
Mike has been chunked by Big Man Ting to his full build on this Discordia. Goodbye, left side Phoenix, without all that much pressure. The Camelot Kings can turn their eyes towards mid now. Mike took a whole lot of damage there. When you got Obshard, Soul Reaver, Divine Ruin, Soul Gem, Chronos Pendant, all ready to go for this Discordia. I don't care how tanky you are, that health bar is going to be going away pretty quickly.
I think that we've seen, admittedly, like, it's 2K off, yeah, 2K difference between Tings and Netroid, but, like, the damage Discordia puts out is so frustrating, especially if you hit a good strike. Like, it's just such a game changer in a lot of these fights. And we haven't seen anything crazy huge just from Tings. Like, obviously, like, the standard burst damage that you can come to expect out of the Discordia. But nothing as insane as, like what we just saw Heroin do when he's going in for a 1v1, things like that. And it goes to showcase, you know, in little scraps, little pickups, 3v3s, what have you, the Dragons do still have a small advantage. But I keep looking down to the 6-1 Netroid, who's been able to stay alive thanks to his team and the pressure that's being put out.
Right?
It's just good luck killing off, you know, the 3 people that you have to kill on the Kings to make your fight successful.
I mean, doesn't it kind of feel like it's like Final K is the only one who's been able to comfortably sit on any one of the Camelot Kings? You know, it's been a cage down onto 3, and then actually you pointed out, Gore, pretty well when we were talking about Phantom versus no Phantom. It's been an immediate disengage from whoever the Camelot Kings get trapped in that cage. And then they just re-engage a moment later.
And really important, that last fight, we saw a cage that captured Netroid, but Netroid dashed, and then the River's Rebuke came up so late and didn't get anybody. It didn't do anything.
Yep, and that's a pairing that you need to connect here if you're the Jade Dragons to keep your right side Phoenix alive. Fire minions pouring in left, regular old minions pouring in the mid lane. And the Fire Giant buff will wear off, so you got to take inventory now of what the Camelot Kings get. They have opened up all 3 Phoenixes. They have knocked down the left side Phoenix, and it has a decent amount of respawn time. This next Fire Giant, which will be enhanced, will be with an exposed left Phoenix. Not only exposed, but a dead left Phoenix that is only halfway back to respawning. And you have to think, Gore, if the Jade Dragons are able to push out this wave far enough, you might need to step forward and contest. You know, you didn't put up a fantastic defense underneath any of those Phoenixes here. Now you're going to have an enhanced Fire Giant to deal with in a moment for the Camelot Kings. If you give it up for free, might have to roll the dice around the FG.
I actually like this as well. Primal Fury, I believe the last couple of times has gone towards the Dragons, which theoretically means that they should put up a much better fight over the Fire Giant. But the problem has been more, and we had kind of just touched on it, the engage from the Dragons the last couple of fights. That has been lacking. But with the burn that the Kings have, yeah, go for the Oni Fury while it's available. That's going to help your left side even easier and make things a lot more problematic. That's going to be meeting halfway right now. By the time the Fire Giant is like thoroughly in trouble, you're going to be back at the tier 2 line, or at least easily should be around there with that Oni Fury. Oni Fire Minion Wave, the full max strength wave.
Yeah, we need like
It's gonna be fine.
We need a term for that, just like the beefiest wave that you could possibly.
Baby.
Right, you put a Tiamat wave over there too. Look at this, a fight already breaking out. Oh no, where's Hurrywit's health bar gone? Before my eyes, he is missing, and it's Genetics who finishes off the kill. Sam for Soccer able to trade out, and it's a double kill for Sam. That is massive for the Jade Dragons. You've killed both of the carries, both teams fighting with junglers, solo laners, and supports.
Now we have to see. Look, Twig's a little closer to half than Sam. Sam could potentially stay in that fight. No, he backs off.
Mike's dead? Yeah, Mike's got to be dead here, and the Camelot Kings will tilt the scales back in their favor. Goros, the same fight from both teams on both sides. All carries dead. And then Mike is the only difference maker here. Is there enough damage for the Camelot Kings to get this enhanced Fire Giant right now? They're on the Pyromancer. And that one, there is enough damage to deal. Figure Captain Twig has to deal most of the damage to the FG. Camelot Kings will not go for the enhanced Fire Giant, and that's good for the Jade Dragons. I think that's a fight.
Yes.
You win it in that way. You lose the Pyromancer, but your Phoenix respawns. You deal with all of the Oni waves. And you're back to maybe not comfortable, but not terrified of how open and exposed your base is.
They've been so worried about left, though. Look at right. They've got a full regular wave plus an Oni Fury wave that's going to be walking in there. Someone's going to. It's going to be a little bit of damage, right? Someone's going to clear it. It's going to be fine. But
I mean, you don't love
That's-
losing half
I was
health
going
on
to
a
say,
Phoenix.
that's all of a sudden half of a Phoenix. If the Kings win this next Fire Giant fight, it's enhanced. That's 2 autos from Netroid. That's 2 autos from Twig. That is not something that you want to have to deal with, especially since you've got a weakened Phoenix on left. Makes things a lot easier all around
Ooh.
for the Kings, just because of those wave states.
Bit of a difference in the Hunter builds down the stretch. Pin the Cat finishes with the chin size, Deathbringer for Netroid. So those crits will definitely help out around this enhanced Fire Giant. Whereas the chin size with those healthier targets, Genetics Variety, who ran down Panda Cat last time, maybe the chin size help in an engagement like that. And the Camelot Kings definitely still playing from a position of power here, Gore, but the Jade Dragons now comfortable enough, as we've mentioned, with the state of their base, that you're able to step up, you're able to spend a little bit more time. The waves all right around the mid of their respective lanes, but you gotta go at some point. The Fire Giant between Netroid and Genetics melting down pretty quickly. The gas pedal has been pressed, but the damage has been turned around. Apple out from Big Man Tings. Falls by the wayside. Captain Twig into the backline. Hurrywind kiting back well. Look at the sustain from Mike to keep him in place. Oh, the pillow is huge. Captain Twig pulls in 2. And both of the targets die. Now Hurrywind left running to the hills. FineOK, the only one in range, and he'll have to make some magic happen around the enhanced Fire Giant.
Panda Cat, his beads are up now, which is a little too late for it to be helpful. FineOK has to do something
No
to
chance.
build it. Yeah, the team's just going to back off.
Those are long death timers, Gore.
Yeah, they're spending, it's a full
They
minute
can prop.
before they're
Just walk in.
back. And honestly, you just
Sam
run it
do here?
down. I think this, I've got to give it credit. Look, I was talking up Netroid earlier, and I still think Netroid's just doing nuts work, but Twig's choice in the dodgy and playing it the way that he has, it's 3, 2, and 4. It doesn't scream out like it's been doing a ton,
It died so fast.
but this dodgy has made the difference in this fight, in
Yep.
this game.
Yeah, that powwow there at the end. I mean, look at how in sync those death timers are. It was 2 pulls, 2 kills immediately for the Camelot Kings. It was the engage they needed. And the Jade Dragons have not found the engage. FineOK has been jumping in, but his health bar has been melting quickly, and it's going to happen yet again here. Captain Twig ends the game on a killing spree, and the Camelot Kings, they sneak away a Fire Giant early on in this game. And the game never looked the same since.
Yep.
This is a game that the Jade Dragons were way ahead of, and they take a Primal Fury while the Camelot Kings sneak away that Fire Giant, and the Kings were able to push the lead.
That might be one of my favorite calls that I've gotten to see from a team. Like, that is just,
That was
it's
great.
such a good timing of, we lost this fight, but we still have some players that can
Yep.
burn this down. They think we're backing. Leave them to the Fury. Let's just skirt to the other side. Like, one little thing like that, even getting held at bay, like the most they got out of that was 2 towers on the left-hand side. Doesn't feel like it's a game-ending Fire Giant, but the way they roll it forward, the way they take control of the map afterward, really, really did just kind of solidify themselves in success.
On the waiting room, I said the Dragons are poised for a 2-0 weekend. Maybe not looking so great here after game number 1. The Dragons, time to recollect and bounce back in game number 2. Gore and I will take a quick break, and when we come back, the desk will break down game 1.
Shop.smiteproleague.com is where you can go to get all of your apparel for the Smite Pro League itself. Thanks to our sponsors at Insight Apparel for providing all that merchandise, specifically the new merchandise in the store that you can get: the team joggers and team mouse pads, one with each logo for the joggers and a personalized one for every single one of the teams in the Smite Pro League. So make sure to pick yours up today at shop.smiteproleague.com. Again, thank you to Insight Apparel for bringing those all of us to us. Game number 1, though, here in this first match of the day between the Kings and the Dragons. Looked like the Dragons tried to start running away with that one. They were able to get that fight around the Gold Fury, but man, a smart call by the Camelot Kings to say, you know what, you want the Gold Fury? You guys can have it. We'll take the Fire Giant. It just felt like ever since that Fire Giant, Camelot Kings, they never stepped off the gas.
Even up until that point, the Jade Dragons may have had a kill lead throughout certain portions of the early game, but they weren't quite able to find their footing inside of the map. So the Camelot Kings, despite being down maybe a couple of kills inside the early, still always maintained, or nursed rather, a 2,000 or 3,000 gold lead until that breakout team fight around the Gold Fury, lack thereof, where they were able to pick up the Fire Giant. Just macro play, able to net the Camelot Kings themselves a pretty nice, hefty win up against the Jade Dragons this time around. I think the player you've seen on the screen as well deserves some well-earned shout-outs, man. I mean, 3.75 KDA, tons of damage. I believe ends the game at 6-2. Netroid absolutely off to a tear. And Captain Twig with that dodgy pick. I think the pick itself, P's and B's, maybe I give credit a little bit more so to the coach of the Camelot Kings this time around, Biggie, for just nailing the fact that Dodgy kind of deals with this composition from the Jade Dragons.
I mean, just kind of frags the comp as a whole. Very little CC immunity in anybody. I believe you highlighted it was only Hurrywin who had natural CC immunity as kid. So, and this is a perfect target for a Dodgy to pick off. And so many times he was able to find those perfect moments where Panda Cat or Sam didn't have their beads and it was get those nice little pullbacks in. Constant application of that CC from Genetics and Variety, able to make sure they can keep those beads constantly on cooldown. And well, finally, after being kind of bullied on the Dodgy a little bit, Captain Twig's able to pick it up and do well for himself. 4-2-4 for him, 6-2 for Netroid that we talked a little bit about earlier. So getting some nice kills, much lower on the death. Variety, he was the one that everybody wanted to shut down. I mean, we saw like 3-4 rotations early game to make sure to keep Variety down, but it seems that Variety wasn't the biggest problem to deal with. 24,000 damage out of Big Man Tings, the big number to put up on the Discordia. And then kind of comes down to that, that double-edged sword of a question is the Discordia worth banning now when you're fighting up against the Camelot Kings?
Look, I think if you're after second phase of bans, if they're still waiting on their mid laner, sure, you could toss out a Discordia ban, but with how the standings are, with all these meta picks that you have to address, the new Guardians, the brand new meta inside of mid lane, do you really want to play against like Tiamat? No, I think I'd rather take the Discordia over that. It's hard to toss a ban towards a god like that so early on, which is why having these in-pocket picks, it's the reason that guys like the Valkyries are so hard to lock down, or even Dardes as well. It's just you play these things that nobody else is playing at such a high level. Maybe it does kind of eke into the back of your brain like, maybe we don't want to play against it. But can you really ban it? I don't think so.
Well, we'll see what the Dragons like to do here up against the Kings. Picks and bans, game number 2 now underway. Kings do have that first pick selection. The Jade Dragons, after losing game 1, they decide they want to take second pick, and that'll give them 2 power picks to come off of the tail end of the bans. And obviously, with the Kings having their first one, a lot of Guardian focus in the first one. We had 3 supports and a Soling Guardian all banned away. Maybe not expecting to see a whole lot of difference here in game number 2, trying to keep some of that new guard out of there, and especially keep that Uller at bay and keep it out of there. And it's just so curious that we're seeing that Netroid is getting so much priority for this Camelot Kings. Both him and Genetics in this dual lane have been players that they're really trying to get their first picks out for him. And we saw Izanami as a first selection from the Kings in game number 1.
I mean, the emphasis on the dual lane is clearly paying off for the Camelot Kings. That was a massive dual lane gap inside of game 1. I believe it was like a combined 1-7 for the Jade Dragons dual lane or something like that, whereas the Kings were sitting very pretty inside of theirs. But as the ban phase has rolled out, it seems like both of these teams have figured out exactly what they're trying to target, as this was an incredibly fast ban phase. Uller, Odin, Ardio from the Camelot Kings. Jade Dragons on the other end go for that Geb, Tiamat, and Kepri, which means that only one of those new age Guardians works their way through and is immediately picked up on the other side. But if you're paying attention inside the waiting room, first pick Sylvanas does not work out super often.
Yeah, I believe there was a 0% win rate if this god has been first picked. And really, there is only 2 supports picking this god at the moment. That I can recall, I've only... 3. Aurora has 1 that I've seen, and then Genetics and Inbound are the other 2 players that are really going for this god. Interesting to note here, Cerberus getting locked in. We did not see him at all in game number 1. Not picked, not banned, not even really looked at by these teams. And maybe that comes with the fact that Odin was locked in. Odin does have decent ways of maybe dealing with this Cerberus. Raijin, who got vastly ignored also in game number 1, gets picked up here for the Jade Dragons. So we got Sylvanas, Raijin, Cerberus as the top 3 gods locked in. Camelot Kings. If anything, if history is to repeat itself, we might see Netroid's god locked in here. Ram, Izanami have kind of been those top 2, and then a Heimdall as a third potential option for him in that hunter role.
Yeah, if I'm the Kings right here, I'm probably keeping my eyes on Izanami and Hunbots. Hunbot's going to act as a secondary ban because the Jade Dragons have had a propensity to go towards that pick for Sam for soccer. And with 1 pick left available to them before the second phase of bans, I think it is pretty likely that if it is left available, the Jade Dragons will be picking that one up. So there's one of the 2, Izanami, locked in for the Kings. And I know that I said it will act as a ban if they do elect, the Camelot Kings that is, to pick the Hunbots. But Captain Twig's very, very good on that god himself, and it seems like he's in very high spirits right now, smiling into the camera. I think that Hunbots could really help out this draft. You've already got some great beads-burning tools inside of the Izanami and the Sylvanas, but why argue against the top damage inside of the lobby, right? Big man Ting's able to put up 25,000 inside of the last game. Gonna go ahead and try and do that yet again here in game 2.
Yeah, kind of as we were talking about right before the picks and bans is, is the Discordia warranted a ban? Maybe the Kings thought that could be taken away from them if it does get to that second round. So they lock in their carries once again very early in, and Panda Cat wants to go for something big of his own. Ho Yi locked in for the Jade Dragons. But interesting to note, 10 games played, 10% win rate. Ho Yi has not seen a whole lot of success here in the SPL as of this phase.
Yeah, a couple of those games on the Valkyries. I believe the Scarabs have gone towards the Ho Yi once or twice already as well. But if anyone's going to find some wins on it, you better believe it's young Panda Cat for the Jade Dragons. This guy loves these more aggressive style of picks, and I think something like Ho Yi should facilitate his playstyle a little bit more so than something like AMC would have. That Hunbots that we were talking about just a moment ago is going to get banned out here. The Jade Dragons saying, hey, I think you guys are going to go for it. Let's go ahead and take that one off the table. But both teams now lacking their jungler, so the Jade Dragons, by allocating a ban towards Hunbots, not only hurting the Kings, but themselves as well.
They did go for Susano in game number 1, so that could allude to maybe the Kings taking a ban that direction. Instead, it will be a shot there with the Nike, just in case Sam decided he wanted to run that one in the jungle. But Jade Dragons, they can go with another jungle ban if they want. They can ban the Loki like they did in game number 1, and then try and maybe leave that Susano open again for Sam, or maybe Sam goes a completely different route. Maybe they ban this Daji that gave them so much trouble in game number 1. Ho Yi, not the safest god up against there, no CC immunity, so Daji could really stick to this god, but we'll see where they decide to go. It will be Daji banned away here by the Jade Dragons. Final shot over now for the Camelot Kings.
And we'll see which way they do go. I am surprised to see Daji banned out. Sure, it has great performance, but this time around you've already got 2 gods with CC immunity on your side. If you are the Jade Dragons, Tycho, Drum, and Stygian Torment going to do a lot to deal with the Pal-Lao, but the Kings, with a little bit of flavor, decide to ban out the Zhang Kui this time around. Maybe saying, hey, I'm not completely sold that this Cerberus is headed for the Soul Lane. We might see Fano K trying to pull that one out. Cerberus could still flex into support. PBM certainly no stranger to playing that god, but I think that was a ban that may have been superfluous. I'm not too concerned about it.
Tsukiyomi, not Susano. Tsukiyomi, the other Japanese assassin, locked in here for the Jade Dragons. Going to give them a lot of damage, some decent close-range CC with that second ability, and get a nice disarm and a stun at the tail end of it. And then the Caltrops, one of the more annoying abilities to deal with, because it covers, man, it's such a wide ability, that little half moon that you throw out. It slows you down, you take a lot of damage, especially when you get to the late stage of the game. If you're a carry and you walk over, you take like 60, 70 damage every single tick, and not to mention the long-range basic attacks you can throw out after a couple of different casts to his ability, like that Shadow Shuriken or the Caltrops. But going to be King Arthur one more time for variety. Got a little bit bullied early on in game 1 with it, but more than confident bringing it back here in game 2.
He put out 20,000 damage despite all the efforts of the Jade Dragons to shut down variety. So I think King Arthur is certainly a pick that I'm happy with him taking inside of this one. Loki, though, is a little bit of a new look for Captain Twig. Has great 1v1 potential, has the ability to even split push still. I know that decoy not being the case, or not being as it was, makes the split push a little bit weaker, but still, the survivability of Loki is nothing to be scoffed at. The movement speed from stealth, legitimately just being stealth, as well as a teleport ultimate, means that you are incredibly hard to chase down. If Captain Twig doesn't want to fight you, you're not fighting Captain Twig.
Yeah, last 2 performances we did see from Captain Twig on this god, a 4-3-4 up against the Titans. That was a win.
Oh, wow.
And then against the Oni Warriors, he played, got a 9-1-6 game. So Captain Twig not much of a stranger to, and made a little bit of a rough start of the season on it, but been able to make this pick work out for him, able to get a couple of wins. But with a Cthulhu final pick, they were kind of alluding to the Cucullin for just a little bit. But after that first kind of week of the new patch, Final K brought out this Cthulhu, did like 34,000 damage, and nobody could deal with him. His slash line was low. It was 1, 1, and 4, but he put out so much zoning on this god that it warranted a ban, I believe, the next 2 games immediately afterwards. Seeing it brought back out here by the Dragons. How you liking the final selection of this draft?
I think it really does a lot for your team here. Now you can have some sustain inside of the team fight thanks to Descent into Madness. You've already got great beads burning tools thanks to the Stygian Torment from the Cerberus, which is now likely headed into the support role, which means that Cerberus plus Ho Yi's the lane you're looking at from the Camelot Kings side, or rather Jade Dragon's going to be the one playing it. So that's a very high kill pressure lane. That's a lot of early pressure. Maybe going to lose out a lot insofar as minion pressure. Sylvanas and Izanami might be one of the highest lane pressure compositions you could go for inside of the duo lane. So purple buffs, red buff invades certainly on the table for the Camelot Kings, but I don't know, man. Once the team fight phase starts up, it feels like the Jade Dragons, with all these large AoE CC abilities, with all these lane lockdown abilities, rain some suns down, Taiko drums, going to be very hard to deal with for the Kings.
And you got the nuke potential of the Tsukuyomi with all the items buffed up to make him even more powerful. We've seen what it can do in the hands of the Scarabs between Scream and Baronic coupling up on that god whenever he does get to play the Morgan. Obviously, Baronic not playing Tsukuyomi mid. It would be an interesting one, but probably wouldn't work out. But here in the jungle for Sam for Soccer, play similar to a lot of the other assassins. You kind of sit a little bit far back, get your opportunity, blink right in, kill the carry as often as you can, or just dive right into the back line with that piercing moonlight. Can cover a lot of distance. But up against the Camelot Kings, game number 1 with kind of that back and forth, fairly slow early game. We'll see if we see a lot of that similarities here in game number 2. Camelot Kings looking to close the set, and the Dragons looking to take it to 3. Can they do that? Let's take it to Gore and Dave.
That's me. That's me. I'm going to take a quick pause here and make sure that Mike is not inside of the Camelot Kings jungle this time, and he is not. And a bit of a different look here for PBM as Gormizer and Doug join me for game number 2.
Sorry.
No, I'm glad. I'm glad I got a reaction out of Gore. That's all I needed
Oh,
here.
no, I was laughing at something that
All right,
literally
and now
I think
I'm crushed. I thought it was me, Gore. I thought I was being funny. But
yeah, it was you too, sure.
Appreciate you, Gore. Thank you so much. I'm right back on top of the world, just like that. I want to start here in the support conversation, Gore, because we got a whole lot of fun to look forward to in this lane. So Mike on the Cerberus, that's normally been over in the solo lane.
Yeah.
And so I think that pick in and of itself should be some fun to watch here this game in game number 2. And then Genetics on Sylvanas, which isn't necessarily new, but he's gone War Flag as his starter item. It's a little bit of uniqueness to start off game number 2 here in the duo lane.
Yeah, definitely making things a little spicier for us. I actually really like the Cerberus pickup for this, though, because we've seen it a lot as like the counter matchup for what, the Hells and the Artios. Like when you're dealing with healing, you go Cerberus, although you
my
maybe
God.
need some help over there. Yeah, Mike's going to live, but
You
only,
think this is the
only
most
in
pressure?
spirit.
You think this is the most pressure you can draft in a lane right now?
This
An
is-
Izanami plus a Sylvanas?
If I've been playing Smite and like my duo lane, like I keep getting crushed in laning phase, this is the lane, like the Sylvanas Izanami
Whoa.
is what I go to make my life feel better.
Wow, the strife connects from Big Man Tings onto Hurrywind, who has to Thunder Crash away. But there was a real good chance there at first blood. Twig, quick on the blink, blinks in, and forces Hurrywind right on back. Hurrywind able to hold on to the beads, which is a small win here in the mid lane. But Big Man Tings back on this Discordia Gore. Put on a clinic there in game 1. Netrioid was maybe the star of the show with the damage. But by the end of the game, Big Man Tings was dealing the fair share of damage on his own.
Yeah, Tings just did, again, he did a lot that maybe wasn't the flashiest of all plays, but got the job done and realistically opened the door
1
here.
versus
Twig.
1. Twig is going to walk away because that's all he can do from Sanford Soccer, but how far away can he run? Not enough. And Sanford Soccer grabs first blood, and that is the least ceremonious first blood we've seen in a while. It's just Twig on the wrong side of the map and Sanford Soccer running him down.
The good news is he got the first blood and he took both of the back camps. He got a lot of experience just for that one little rotation. Good on Sam playing that aggressive. What a great pull.
It's a great pull. Up and over goes Panic Cap, and Netrioid is there to read it. And luckily a stun out from Mike will slow down the re-aggression. But yeah, back to the conversation of, is this one of the most pressuring duo lanes you can find
Short answer, yes.
Short answer, yes, right. I mean, a root and a pull from Genetics into the damage and the trading from Netrioid is great. An early fight breaking out here on the Jade Dragon side of the jungle. The silence from Hurrywind is huge, and Hurrywind gets the kill on a Captain Twig. Big Man Tings rotating in behind this fight, but Jade Dragons will end this fight before there's a chance. Genetics will be run down. The slow is in. A double kill from the Jade Dragons and a 3-kill swing on left.
Now this brings me to the point I want to make about this Sylvanas, which has nothing to actually do with the Sylvanas we're seeing in game, but actually the Sylvanas we saw in picks and bans. And granted, it's a very small sample size of 2, but Sylvanas has not won a game when he has been first picked just yet, and I believe that extends pretty heftily to teams that have first picked him on the Chaos side, but I don't keep track of that one automatically, so I'd have to actually go tally that up myself manually. It is just, he has not necessarily been so hot at the top when he's first locked in. It feels like it is something that, as you can see here, the Dragons are able to come up with a strategy to potentially deal with. And so far, it's been working for him. Maybe not in the lane itself, but at least in terms of these fights and the pressure. I mean, that might have just been the Kings overextending, but I really do like the way that the Dragons are retaliating.
Here's another pull on to Panicat, who's taking a lot of damage, and he'll go up and over the wall. But it's purple buff dropped successfully by the Jade Dragons, but not without some pressure finding its way onto Panicat. Panda hasn't gone back just yet, so he's got about 1,300 gold to spend up, so not super concerned that he's half. It's not like he came back into lane just now and he's already at half HP and low mana. And so Panicat will head on back to base, 3 assists in tow, and we'll finish up the heavy mace. So lane equity as far as items go on the left, but Netrioid slightly behind as far as XP goes.
I see Tsukiyomi over here. I'm waiting to see what Sam's going to do. He has ult now, too.
He does, and it's Piercing Moonlight onto Netrioid. The damage is in. The pull from Genetics is good, but I think Netrioid's going to suffer a loss here. Sam for Soccer, 4-0-1. 4 minutes and 20 seconds into the game for the jungler of the Jade Dragons.
He's just kind of putting in the work right now. I mean, he was early on last game, but this feels to be a different level of effort that is coming from the Tsukiyomi. Early on, we saw the Susanoo in Game 1 finding a lot of these little picks, although most of them were on the other side of the map. He's found 2 now on the Twig and slowed that down. He's also been able to pick up the 2 on the Netroid, which is a huge deal for them in terms of slowing this down. Plus, I mean, look, Twig's getting aggressive here, but like, I actually really like the fight that Raijin has, especially Tsukiyomi's in the neighborhood, although Sam's getting aggressive on the left side again.
Wow, Sam for Soccer is
Genetics
here yet again. Genetics with the pull. Some good lockdown there. Netroid might be able to win a trade with Sam, but now Panicat with the kill onto Genetics is able to pull this lane even further ahead for the Jade Dragons. Sam for Soccer sticking around. The purple buff, though, gets a bit of a heal. Netrioid slowed. Polar Bear Mike rotating, and Stygian Torment out with the beads. Great from Netrioid. The Tier 2 tower provides some safety, but how much? Not enough. Sam for Soccer.
Oh, no, Sam, no! Okay,
oh, yes, Aegis.
What a relic choice. How many junglers go first relic ages? That is, look, that's clairvoyance for Sam. He knew that was going to happen. That's the only reason to have chosen that.
Oh my goodness. Although I don't know if Netrioid did any damage to him. I don't know. It might have just been killed off by the tower. At any rate, Sam for Soccer is alive, and Gore Sam, we are 6 minutes into this game. Sam has affected 100% of the kills. He is at 502 on Tsukiyomi, and 5 of the 7 kills are on the dual lane of the Kings. There was a lot of pressure on left in on the solo lane in Game 1. You think Netrioid and Genetics are happy with the way that Sam for Soccer has placed his pressure here in Game 2. Boop.
That's right before the thing hits, too. like
10 HP. That's 9 more than it needed. 9 more than it needed. Sam for Soccer lives on.
My God.
But really,
Sam,
if you rooted in an analysis here, Gore, I mean, Genetics and Netrioid are 0-5 combined. Captain Twig is the other 2, and all of that fighting's been happening on left. Variety was the target in Game 1. The dual lane is the target here in Game 2.
So far, you know what? I'm going to say it works out for him. You get one of the best pressure duo lanes, and you're the ones that are down. I mean, you've got a 2-level lead right now if you're Panda Cat. Surprisingly enough, Mike is actually behind Genetics. That
with
catches
5
me
assists.
off guard a little bit. Not too far behind, but still behind. At the end of the day, I think that's all Genetics needs to know going forward. That's small differences. That's going to be, hey, I hit level 12 first, I got a second relic. But now can Panda Cat return the favor?
Oh, assassinate onto Panda Cat. The suns are dropped, and the chase is on. Need a kill here if you're the Camelot Kings, and you'll get one, and it's Captain Twig finally on board. And so the other jungler able to grab a kill. Unfortunate, the purple buff not up and ready to go. Polar Bear Mike has rotated in, but Mike is alone here, and so he won't choose to chase any further. And it was about time that Netroid received a little bit of help here, and that'll help this Izanami close up that XP gap.
Again, you just get him the late game. That's the, you know what? If you're the Kings, just get him the late game. You're going to do fine. That's realistically their strategy. I mean, a lot of their games, we've seen it, and teams that will let them. The Kings won't really fight for the first 15 minutes. I mean, they might get 2, 3, 5 kills total, but they're not looking to pop off and have insane numbers.
Whoa, Genetics engages onto Sam. This is a massive shutdown if the Kings can find it, and it's Genetics who picks up the shutdown. Big man Tings jumped on by Hurrywin, over by the blue buff though. It's Fine OK still descending into madness. We'll just zone out Variety and Genetics, and so that is massive now. Genetics gets a big spike here, getting a shutdown on the 5-0 Sanford Soccer.
I mean, and that's going to be good. Just to be around for that is a big pickup, but realistically, just to slow Sam down a little bit is going to be nice.
Yeah,
as
there's
well.
no Tsukiyomi on the map for a minute, right?
5-1 and 3. They slowed him down for how long was that? 20 seconds overall. And like now he's going to be able to back off, go for his speed buff. I'm watching you, Twig, because you got to be real careful getting this deep. Yeah, it's the right play, right? Go in, get a little bit of the harpies, the ones you can kill really fast.
I would like to leave, please. Yep, Sanford Soccer heads to his speed. Back on the map he goes. Jotun's Wrath plus Brawler's Beat Stick. And 5 kills, 3 assists in the back pocket. So make no mistake, this game has been driven through the jungle. But Panda Cat is at a point now. You're 2 levels ahead of Netroid. Outside of outside pressure making its way here into the duo lane, Panda should be in a spot where you can brawl out with Netroid and feel just fine. So maybe an opportunity now, Gore, for Sam to start to put some pressure elsewhere on the map. Maybe you look towards solo lane again. He was there just a moment ago. Maybe get this mid lane in a bit of a more comfortable spot, which is hard to say because Hurrywin is at 2-0-2 as well. Point being, Panda Cat should be at a comfort point to where the Tsukiyomi can affect the rest of the map.
Theoretically, he's going to be able to hold his own, save for if 2 to 3 people show up into his lane like they did last time. That is going to cause a little bit of trouble for Panda Cat. But beads are coming up, ult is up, and he's got a hefty lead over Netroid. That one-on-ones will be no problem. In fact, I think Netroid's going to have to play it very safe because I think Panda easily could jump in on him and look for a fight. Especially around this Gold Fury. The Suns being up is going to be big for these team fights as well. So I'm watching the positioning, specifically like watch where Mike is running because he's keeping his eyes open on the left-hand jungle. A couple of big kills, or even just one, could be the go button for the Dragons to just shift right over onto that Fury and try to extend this lead.
And the lead is important to look at here, Gore, because there is a massive, I mean, this has been Sanford Soccer's show from the start. What's that culminated in? 1,000 gold is the difference here. And so the lead is not ridiculous just yet. The levels are even in the jungle. Captain Twig has been able to farm up just fine. He's got hi-rez as his second item on this Loki. There's going to be a lot of damage coming out of the jungle for the Camelot Kings. And the Jade Dragons, make no mistake, they're off to a great start here in this game. About everything you dream of when you think about the start to a game. But the Kings have weathered the storm well. It's about as well as you can. And I believe stop things from getting worse. A chance for Genetics to engage in the mid lane. Beads a bit late from Hurrywin as the apple will connect onto him. Captain Twig follows Hurrywin, follows the Raijin under the tier 1 tower and assassinates him where he stands. Polar Bear Mike will pull Twig right back underneath the tier 1 tower. Should be a kill for the Jade Dragon support. And Sanford Soccer continues his reign of terror as he grabs a kill on the Genetics.
And this is important for them, right? Early game kills, you had highlighted it. They are really cool, really flashy, and can then lead to a huge lead. But they themselves are not worth so much. It's what you do with that time that makes them worthwhile. And that's where these kills start coming in. You're starting to look at these 20-second timers where nobody's on the map. That opens up your capabilities of getting aggressive, not just onto other players on the Kings for the Dragons here, but also onto these buffs. That is the big deal. And opening up the conversation to that Gold Fury, keeping things on the left-hand side of the map.
Surprised they didn't go for the Gold Fury?
I'm actually really... Yeah, a little bit, honestly. I think they have the damage for it. Maybe it's lacking Hurrywin that really slows him down a little bit.
Yeah.
And also recognizing that a couple of plays from key members on the Kings really do disrupt a lot of their team fight, which I'm looking mainly at Tings right now. Probably could have still leveraged it, but I don't mind what they did with their time on the side of the Dragons, especially when you look at Sam at 6-1 and 9. You look at the level differences, it's slowed down a little bit in dual lane, so Netroid's becoming a little bit more of a threat. I think they have to play carefully, but not necessarily cautiously over the next couple of minutes. Reckless abandon. Keep playing aggressively. Just don't do it by yourself. Have a
Right.
backup.
Let's calculate it just a little bit. Just a teeny bit. Make sure someone is there by your side. Deep ward coverage for the Jade Dragons on the left side of the map. So if this Gold Fury is walked at by the Camelot Kings, there are a couple pathways where the Jade Dragons will know where Netrioid and the rest of the gang is. You can tell how cautiously Netrioid is playing here in this moment. Just kind of dancing back beneath the Tier 1, Tier 2 tower. Scorpion spawns, and Genetics right back to mid. Tycho drums out from Hurrywind, but Assassinate in from Captain Twig. And a lot of pressure has found its way onto the Raijin. Oh, it's huge from Polar Bear Mike and Sanford Soccer there to collect on the check that PBM wrote. And Sanford Soccer grabs another, but this one brought to you by Mike.
You know what? You finally have to shout it out. Sam's not a part of one of the kills.
That's right.
Finally something happened without him, and that is a big deal. That being said, 1 for 1 here. Probably killing off Twig feels a little better than killing off Hurrywind, because you had highlighted earlier, Hurry was 2-0-2 earlier, still same level as Big Man Tings. As much as it is nice to help shut him down and stop his presence from existing, still Raijin, still going to be just fine regardless of the death, whereas Loki is going to start feeling those, or should be feeling all 4 of those at this point, as he keeps getting caught out.
Ooh, Genetics good. Pull onto Polar Bear Mike here. Genetics has finished that Lotus Crown, so the Wisps will help in fights like this. Sanford Soccer uses that Aegis yet again, this time not quite as close to death as last. But a red buff scrap goes the way of the Camelot Kings, and Big Man Ting's able to pick up the enhanced red buff. Gold Fury still stands here. If the Camelot Kings are able to find a kill, or the Jade Dragons for that matter, maybe that's where these teams start to look, but we'll disengage. And Gore, Genetics, even outside of the pull, even outside of that ultimate, this Lotus Crown has been the topic of conversation around a lot of these healing supports. And the Wisps, plus the Lotus Crown procs that you gain, make your team feel real hard to kill.
Yeah, they do.
Don't they?
It is such a difficult god to play into. Which is why, again, I like the Cerberus pickup against it. The passive for Cerberus stealing some of the healing, maybe not helping as much with the prots themselves, although he does have a little bit of prot shred. So maybe helping ultimately in some of these fights. And that's where Mike has been playing a big deal for a lot of them. He's also just chilling in the jungle. Okay, there it is. Honestly, he was just sitting there patiently, but around nothing. They're going to back off. I'm surprised to see, after such an explosive start from Sam, though, the slowdown that has happened, which is, we haven't seen as much of him. He's been more in a retaliation position than he has been as the setup and initiator. That's going to be a big ultimate during these team fights, as well as just a huge player for these team fights with the damage output he has.
Well, you think about kind of where things went wrong for the Dragons in Game 1, it almost felt like outside of Fine-OK, who's rotated over the Gold Fury, that the Jade Dragons have started up here. And it looks like we'll be able to take down. Oracles are here. Camelot Kings know this is going on, but they will trade out the Pyromancer instead. Twig is low. Need the help of Variety here to take down the Pyromancer and able to get that one done. Can the Jade Dragons find something in the mid lane, though, while this is going on? Does not seem that way. So Pyro traded out for the Gold Fury. Maybe feels like a wash here early on in this game. But going back to it, think back to last game. Fine-OK would jump in, got a big cage, and then the ult the engage kind of fell flat for the Dragons after that. Piercing Moonlight. A get into the backline free card. Pull no good from Genetics, but the ult is great. Stygian Torment out from Mike, and that'll send Genetics off to the white side. Piercing Moonlight, here we go. On the rod goes Sanford Soccer, who is stunned in place by Twig. Is Sam alive? No way. Netrioid finally able to get that kill, but the last 2 members of the Camelot Kings are low. Variety rotating in late to this fight, but he is late to the party, and his team have left the party already. Hurrywind gets the double. Big 2 for 4 for the Dragons.
Yeah, I mean, Panda Cat Sam barely stays alive through a lot of that. Panda Cat, unfortunately, his leap doesn't get him as far out of there as he would like, but he's still able to turn around a little bit of kill and a lot of damage for his team. Hurry picking up whatever is left. Exactly what you would want, especially from a good engage on the back of the Kings. I mean, Genetics had a really good start. It's the Stygian Torment from Mike that I think makes it a little more awkward for him. Once that CC was gone, or CC immunity was gone from Genetics, he gets pulled right back into it. And that is a good pickup for the Dragons, especially as we're starting to see these fights be a little more lasting in terms of what their power afterwards is going to be. But there weren't many big objectives, and honestly, like looking at the gold lead, it's not like the Dragons are so massively ahead. This is not too different from the last game, just the kills are in a wildly different position. Last time you had mentioned it There's Variety, who I believe, 17, 18 minutes in, was at 1-5. It's collectively 2-8 for the duo lane for the Camelot Kings. Not necessarily having a great time, but I say this every time about carries, and I will stand by it any time. And that is that as long as you are able to get some farm, 2 levels down, Netroid's suffering a little bit there. When you get the gold in your pocket, you're going to hit that late game build eventually.
Yep.
And the Kings have a draft that will get you there. The same thing can be said for that Loki, same thing can be said for Discordia's damage. I think if you're the Dragons, you really need to start amping it up, because otherwise we're going to be seeing the Kings get back onto equal footing and fight back twice as hard.
Right, that's the threat. That's the threat right now. Polar Bear Mike grabs Spectral Armor. And so Netroid, who's 3 levels behind now, will be tickling Mike, you imagine, in these fights. So Mike, if he's able to find this Izanami, will feel fine. Stygian Torment does not hit its mark. Would have been a great target. Captain Twig with no beads. Would have been pulled back into the Jade Dragons there. So playing on thin margins is Captain Twig, but able to walk away. And Gore, we talked a little bit about genetics, the healing, not only with the Lotus Crown, but the Wisps and how difficult it is to kill the targets of the Camelot Kings when those Wisps are healing on in. So then you have to look at anti-heal. What do we pick up if we're the Jade Dragons? Well, we've mentioned Mike, the passive, so there's a little bit of that baked into the kit for the Cerberus, but you've got a Divine Ruin for Hurrywind. You've got a Brawler's Beat Stick for Sanford Soccer. Fine, okay. Has a Contagion here as well. So there's plenty of avenues for the Jade Dragons to mitigate some of the healing that genetics is going to provide.
I think you're feeling pretty good about the diversity of anti-heal. Like, someone at some point, and maybe multiple instances, is going to be playing anti-heal to the other team. And they're going to be doing it just fine for the Dragons. It's just making sure you can survive through that. I mean, that last fight you could see got very scrappy. Panda and Sam got into an awkward position, so now we'll have to see if they can continue saving themselves. Both relics are available for both of them. And this is actually also worth noting. I mean, Sam has an ult that essentially can act like a blink, maybe a little bit better, since it'll just teleport you to who you, well, not who you choose, but kind of who you choose, depending on how you hit it. So he'll be able to get into the fight, and he's gone for the Beads Aegis, which is just going to help him survive even more. And when you're 7-2-6, I don't think you can ask for much more than that. You're going to be a huge part of these fights. I think at this point going forward, as long as Sam goes down with Netroid, Tings, or Twig, ideally Netroid or Tings, I think he's going to be happy with it. And more often than not, he's leaving 2 of them at least in an awkward position.
I wonder if it feels like for the Kings it's about just efficient trading at this point. Because look, Captain Twig, he's 4-5, but 4 kills is a hefty amount. Crusher, hi-rez, Brawler's Beat Stick, there's a lot of damage with this Loki here. So it feels like almost, Gore, Captain Twig, in a similar way to Sanford Soccer, can choose the target with that Assassinate. You can get in. If you can delete a target, that's setting up your team well in those fights. But if Twig then dies on the back end, Twig not having Aegis, then it's about the rest of the Camelot Kings finding the damage, finding those kills. And effectively all of the kills for the Kings, all of that kill pressure has landed onto Captain Twig here this game. Big Man Tings has played safe, and so maybe he gets a little bit of it as well. Real close to hitting a big power spike is Big Man Tings. Once that Ob Shard is fully finished. Already a little percent pen, the tier 2 item, but Soul Reaver there as well. And I do so Gore, maybe effective trading is what you have to look at here for the Kings. Twig is going to find a target, and he's going to do a lot of damage to him. But if that's going to happen to Twig, somebody else who doesn't have 4 kills has got to step up in these fights.
Yeah, he's got to live to get that damage off, and that's going to be an interesting point. Also, you have to go back to Variety. Look, last game he was 1-6, and he still had an impact late game in terms of control and locking people down.
Wait, are they going to do it again?
He's in
Look at their rotation. This is Pyro.
Going over there.
This is Pyro. There's no way they're doing Fire Giant again. They're doing Pyro. So Primal Fury for Pyromancer this time. Because it was so similar to the game state we were in game 1, right? It was Pyromancer, the Kings left and went to Fire Giant, but not to be this time. Another Primal Fury traded out this time for the Pyromancer, and the Camelot Kings just fine with that. But Variety's got 4 members of the Jade Dragons looking at him. Panda Cat, we mentioned Twig. He is going to be the one to delete that health bar, and Twig didn't have to use the Assassinate, so now Panda Cat has to leave, has both of the actives, but doesn't feel great about participating in this fight. Captain Twig around the back here. Do you feel comfortable tower diving? That's the question. Fine, okay, now left alone here as well. Dash is beneath the tier 1 tower. And the effective trade score in the health department going the way of the Kings.
And look at all these archers. Yeah, that's a good call. You back off. You still get the tier 2.
Wow.
Look where Twig's position. I mean, Hurrywind is one bad misstep from dead. if Twig's able to get it. You had mentioned the Assassinate still being available. This is good pressure from the
They're
Kings to
behind.
be able to just shove them back under the
What is
Phoenix.
going
They're
on
out.
here, Gore? They're behind. The Camelot Kings are behind in gold.
Yo, not anymore.
Way ahead as far as XP goes. And actually, one of the more unique things I've seen here, Gore, a 2-level lead for Captain Twig. Sanford Soccer is 7-2-6, and Captain Twig has a lead by 2 levels, and that's not a small lead. 2 levels for Variety as well. You wonder where the Kings feel like their strength is. It's maybe with Variety, who is
my God,
melted
Variety.
on his way into the fight. Killing spree for Hurrywin. Taunts in on a Netroid. That's huge. Here's Piercing Moonlight out of Sanford Soccer. The apple is in onto him. And some chunk damage from Big Man takes. The health bars are minimal for the Jade Dragons. Can you close this gap? I mean, Big Man Tings, his mouth is watering. This is an incredible opportunity for a full health Discordia to find a big multi-kill. Can he make something happen? At least grabs one on a Hurrywin to bring this fight back closer to even.
I mean, that's one positioning tweak from being a pentakill for somebody, right?
My
Like, I mean,
God.
you are set up in that moment, but you only get one at the end of the day, which is unfortunate. TKOs for the rest of the Dragons. They get knocked back to the base, and they are going to come back. They are going to still exist and farm up and cause trouble for you. So catching up is going to be the name of the game. Sam, you had mentioned, was 2 levels down, but Twig hit 20, so it doesn't necessarily matter. Twig's not going to keep that lead
That is
for
wild.
long. But now they're in a position where they might even be able to start up the fire giant. I mean, you'd lose it on Hurrywin, or you'd be able to hold it just long enough for him, although that seems dangerous. But you get it on Panda and everybody else, and that seems worthwhile, and they seem to think the same.
Jade Dragons feeling like missing Hurrywin is less impactful than missing Twig right now. This is a good Stygian Torment from Mike. Netroid right back into the Lion's Den, and Sanford Soccer's got the Piercing Moonlight on the target. Big fight for the Jade Dragons. And say goodbye to the duo lane yet again for the Camelot Kings. Fire Giant half reset, but not fully. Variety and Big Man Ting still in range, and full reset is just around the corner. The Jade Dragons will back off.
Those are 2 really good fight for the Kings that just don't go the way they want them to. I mean, it's just better retaliation from the Dragons, whether you look at the Stygian Torment, the Suns, but realistically, I'm looking at Sam. Both times he's been able to isolate Netroid in the first one. Gets shoved out very early on in the fight, so he's not able to get any return damage. This time he just straight up gets killed alongside Genetics, so that feels a good pickup for the Dragons in terms of that. And before that, a lot of the damage that caused trouble for the Dragons was from Twig. I mean, you had highlighted with his build now, he's going to be chunking people. He got 4 or 5
Literally
people in his
assassinating
damage.
someone.
And unfortunately for them, they just didn't have the follow-up.
Yeah, that's a Cthulhu that Twig helped get down to half HP just now. Fire Giant's low, and the Jade Dragons will confirm it, but yet again, this huge splash damage finds its way across the roster. Massive mantle stun from Variety, but not enough just yet. And again, it is Big Man Tings with the opportunity to close the gap, to kill off some of these health bars. Blink forward from Polar Bear Mike. Will not connect onto Big Man Tings. Strife being down. Now a big loss for Big Man Tings. It's 2 kills plus Fire Giant for the Jade Dragons, but Gore, the health bars low. Genetics has found the engage. Genetics left alone with the Jade Dragons. Strife on to Fine OK. Netroid is in with the Dark Portal as well. This is a 3v5 as far as numbers go, but health, not great for the Jade Dragons. A little sustain will help those health bars get back closer to full, though.
Yeah, Sam able to heal up in the jungle. The rest of them, they're just fine. I think they're not going to be worried too much about it. Not a lot of lifesteal. In fact, no lifesteal. That's going to be like at least readily available for Panda King. They do have the Soul Gem. Didn't get the proc, so the healing doesn't come through. But they've been like sitting steadily close to dead, right? I mean, that is all of these
is
fights.
that Big Man Tings, like plus Netroid, is that AoE? Because it feels like in both the last fight score, you see the Jade Dragons, like they're grouped up and they win, they get an initial pick, but then in like half a second, everyone's health bar feels like it melts down to just about even. I mean,
A lot of it's actually been Twig. I mean, like
Twig?
the damage, like Tings is
Right.
getting a lot of that damage
Right.
out, but like Twig, it's the combination between the two. The problem is that Twig's died each time he's gone back there. I mean, you had highlighted earlier, he was 4 and 5. Now he's 4 and 7. He hasn't been able to pick up any of the kills since then. And you can see like the lack of healing. Genetics isn't even really doing that much as of right now. It hasn't necessarily been the biggest contributor. It's the damage that Tings and Twig are able to put together that gets him low, but it has been the gap, right? Netroid hasn't been able to jump up there. He's sitting down bottom 3 on the damage charts. He's below Fine OK. He's just barely sitting above the 2 supports right now. and he hasn't been able to get in there and really be the impact that you want. So Tings gets him low, Twig gets him low, but then Twig dies.
Right.
And no one else is able to get in there and find the kills. The Dragons have just enough sustain to turn things around, especially now with the Fire Giant belt. And they end up, I think going into that, they had 5 towers left to burn down. They've gotten rid of 3 of those already for it. And that makes things a lot more interesting because it was a fight that should have been, and admittedly 3 in a row that feel like it should have been the Kings.
Yep.
Now with the Dragons having the map control as well, this is so readily in their favor that they've been, it feels like they've been piloting it the whole time.
I can't believe I'll admit, Gore, I can't believe the Dragons have had fire. We are 1 minute and 20 seconds away from the Fire Giant falling off, and like nothing has happened on the map. The Kings have burned. I guess that's true. It's been so passively happening that that my mind is kind of blanked on it. You're gonna make it 4. You're gonna open up these Phoenixes. You're right. Right side Phoenix is open here as well. And so I say burned away the time, but the Jade Dragons happy with the pace of how this FG has gone. Built up that gold lead just a little bit further. And just to further prove Dave wrong, why not knock down this last tier 2 tower and expose all 3 Phoenixes? And it's the perfect setting the stage Fire Giant where you're able to get so much passively, and I say passively because there hasn't been much fighting around it. And probably smart from the Camelot Kings. The Jade Dragons will expose the 3rd and final Phoenix. And Gore, that next FG becomes impactful. 1.5 time will be enhanced. And will matter a lot as far as ending this game.
This has been another problem for him. You had mentioned it, but like, look, FinoK's half health here. The
Look
minute
at that. That's what I mean.
Yeah, it's just so much damage, so deep in there. But the disruption from this Descent into Madness, this giant Cthulhu that is zoning them, it just makes it so much easier. If you kill FinoK, which I'm going to go ahead and preface,
that's
a tall order. That is a very difficult task to do. But if you do, it makes it a lot easier to get to Hurry, to get to Panda, to cause them a lot of trouble. But the front line on the Dragons hasn't died. They have been doing a great job in every single one of these team fights zoning and making sure that there's a lot of space between them and the opposing carries on the other side. The Kings just haven't been able to get the damage done that they need to. The peel has been very big. But that Heartseeker just picked up from Twig.
Are we hunting for Tings? Yes, we are. Big man Tings channels his back, does not get into his back. The best you can do is trade out a kill here. Aegis for Hurrywin gets used. And Tycho drums. So it was not easy for the Jade Dragons, but 1 minute without your mid laner now. Fire Giant has respawned or will respawn before Big man Tings is back on the map. Gotta feel like the Dragons feel comfortable pulling it.
Yeah, that makes things so much easier for you. That is a huge chunk of damage that is on their side.
Damage.
He's got 8,000 damage more than the next highest in the game. And that's on the other side of the team. So you are more than happy not having to deal with Tings for a little while. And now you've got a good grouping to get around the Fire Giant.
Variety is around behind the Jade Dragons right now. This would be big. Can Captain Twig even the score? Does not have Assassinate, but will get FinoK out of the fight. Variety behind Hurrywin, enhanced Fire Giant real low here, but can the King Arthur do enough? Another big mantle stun puts Genetics right in the back line. Genetics has gotten a couple. Hurrywin gets the kill on the Variety to trade back. This is a huge fight from the Camelot Kings, all done from behind, all done without their mid laner. 3 for 1 is the trade.
And they're low, it's going to be difficult. PBM and FinoK, are they enough? You've got healing. I think you go for this Fire Giant. You've got 40 seconds without anybody that's going to be coming back.
Yeah, you got healing.
And you've got Tings respawn. Once Netroid joins this fight, I think you're going to be able to find the burn. And then it just comes down to the zone. This is a
Fire
big
Giant
deal without Variety.
Fire Giant this set, Gore, for the Jade Dragons has just not been comfortable. A chance, though, for Mike to steal it away. A chance for FinoK to make something happen. Enhanced Fire Giant. Slow burning here from the Camelot Kings. It's low, and it's
my God!
FinoK with the big play takes it away. And the Camelot Kings will have to wait to get a Fire Giant around their waist. Mike's going to get chased down here, but happy to do so. Captain Twig will grab the kill, but FinoK waltzes on in, and he is the lone man on the map with the EFG.
They spend all their time zoning the one. They forget about the other. There's 2 players that have been causing you so much trouble, and one of them's still undying right now. FinoK is just a thorn in their side. He is disrupting these team fights. It felt like such a huge win for the Kings, too. I mean, Twig, you got him out of there, but you didn't get the kill. Just a little shy. And
look, he just walks in.
Nobody's really looking at him. Genetics turned around. That's probably where things fall apart. Look, Genetics, you cannot let that little bit of space. FinoK just got to walk in there. It looked like he was going to fall back. Admittedly, maybe not the end of the world. Fine OK now has an enhanced fire giant for himself. Actually, that kind of sucks. Wait, I don't want Cthulhu having an enhanced fire giant.
I
It's
don't.
the only person in the lobby.
I do not.
And I guess the ulterior is that you would have 5 members, at least 4 members with it. So no matter what, I'm just going to blanket statement. That kind of sucks for the Kings. Like, just unfortunate scenario to be in.
Well, it's been.
I don't know where to go now.
Well,
What do you do?
I mean, the Jade. Luckily, you don't want it on Cthulhu. Of course you don't. You'd rather have it on everyone on your team. But with it only being on one of the Jade Dragons, at least, it feels about as little of a fire giant power play as you can get. The gold, of course, does help. But if you lose variety here, which you won't, you are going to lose half of his HP. Things get easier. Sam for soccer. Oh, brilliant on the Aegis, but it's not enough to save his life. And yet again, an individual member of the Jade Dragons gets picked off. The Camelot Kings in a good spot to maybe get some pressure here on the map. Still 3 towers standing, 2 of them on left.
Going to be able to steal a speed buff. Should be able to push down a tier 2 in mid. With Variety backing and coming into this fight full health. I anticipate a good amount. Twig has a blue buff around his waist. I just noticed that. Can't pick up the speed he stole. Doesn't necessarily matter, I think, to him
That's right.
as of right now, but we'll see what he's going to be able to provide. He's trying to push up right. They've got minion waves over there, so they theoretically... Look, Enhanced Fire Giant would make this the easiest thing in the world. You just do it. Right now, they have to figure out how to get this split to make it work.
You're playing with numbers instead of FG. Hurrywind jumped on by Captain Twig. Tycho drums, not enough. Poor Bear Mike's got to answer back a kill here. Good stun onto Twig. And so it's a 1-for-1 trade. And Fine OK descends into madness and starts to chase down the Camelot Kings. Mike around the right side. And Fine OK is massive in this fight, but the damage returned onto him is massive as well. He's got to back away. Oh, Bandicat nearly had the apple landing onto Fine OK. And the Jade Dragons able to trade back a kill. Twig for Hurry. And all 3 Phoenixes will live on. 50 seconds remaining. On the Enhanced Fire Giant buff for Fine OK, Oni Fury will join us on the map and will promptly be taken down. And right back to even we go here, Goremizer. Enhanced Fire Giant, in just about a minute and a half time, will be respawning.
This has been a wild 2 games.
This has been nutty. This happened to the Kings too, right? Last weekend, I think
no,
their
gonna set
matchup
up
was
an
crazy. Could be an ambush. Mike is around the right here. Look out for Genetics. That pull could start it off. Strife, no good. Pull, no good. Stun from Mike is about the only thing that lands in that engagement. And that's huge. Minute and a half, as I've mentioned, on the Enhanced Fire Giant respawn. Likely would have been time to get back onto the map. But Team Score, we're going to have a little bit of a moment to take a deep breath, watch how these teams start to ward coverage on the right, and deal with these Oni minion waves if you're the Jade Dragons, before we go at it once more.
Twig back on the map, has his wards available to him. I expect to see, the backs coming through for the rest of them. You had mentioned it. Ward coverage is going to be important. These Oni Fury minions really helping out as in terms of giving the Kings some pressure elsewhere on the map. Not enough to get a Phoenix, though. This game's over if they get that Fire Giant. I think that's it. They win
I think so.
if they have that
I think
zone.
so.
And that's actually one of the biggest deals. You had highlighted Variety going for this big loop around and getting caught out. He dies up there. And if you have a solo laner, I would argue Genetics or Variety instead of Genetics, that Fire Giant steal I think doesn't happen because King Arthur's just really good, at zoning, and you send Twig over to deal with Mike, and then you send Variety over to deal with Fine OK, and the rest of them would be enough to potentially just burn down the FG and feel happy. But it's that awkward, hey, we need you to tank this because we're squishy, but also you're Sylvanas, you're not really known for zoning and keeping people out.
Ooh.
Just didn't work out.
Mike blinks in. Horrific Emblem used onto Netrioid. Fine OK is here as well. Goodbye health bar for Izanami, but goodbye health bar if you're Fine OK as well. The carries returning the damage onto the solo laner, but Fine OK has done the damage. He's taken one with him into the grave. But Big Man Ting's able to answer back. Blink back forward from Captain Twig, who's far from a triple-double, but he's putting on that type of performance. He's getting a lot of kills, but dying a whole lot in tow. Top damage in the game is this Loki. He has zoned out a couple members of the Jade Dragons. And purely based on health, the Camelot Kings feeling more comfortable. Hurdywind and Mike Gore, they realize they can't back off. Variety is going to zone out the only 2 members of the Jade Dragons in range to try to steal, and they will not. The Camelot Kings get EFG on 4.
Make up for it this time around. Sucks that it's not on Netroid, though. That really does hit because he's going to be someone helpful at pushing down towers. Good news is And this is looking at his build. He's gone for the chin size. He's got the Aussie. Yes, he has the Wind Demon, so there's going to be some crit. But that's going to be helpful just in general. Granted, mainly against the squishies on the Dragons. Still has some pushing power just built in due to being a hunter. I like the fact that Twig gets this, though. Twig has been doing a lot of work, and Twig has a lot of damage on his own. I think this is a good opportunity for some split push capabilities coming down from the Loki. Nowhere near what it used to be. I think if we had old Loki decoy and this EFG with this build and these items,
That's right.
Twig gets 2 Phoenixes on his own
Yeah,
for free without having to do anything
That's
really
right.
for it. So luckily we're not dealing with that. We're dealing with the new Loki, and it is definitely going to be
Gore-
a little more difficult.
I mean, he can still probably split, right? I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
it's going to be less shrouded in mystery, but
He's not going to be able to just throw up his own decoy, walk in,
I mean,
smack,
can
smack,
anyone-
smack, and then get out.
do you think anyone on the Dragons can 1v1 Twig right now? I mean, he is scary. Heartseeker, Hydras, Serrated Edge. I mean, you're going to at least burn actives. He doesn't have Aegis, which could be a difference maker if the Aegis is well timed from someone like Sam. But why not send Twig mid? Why not send him right? I'm not sure anyone from the Jade Dragons can match.
Yeah, no, keep him on the split push. Just make sure he has a minion wave with him, which he's doing due diligence to make sure. And that's going to make it awkward. Like you said, I don't know that anyone wins the 1v1. We saw it last time. Hurry was able to help turn that around, mainly due to the Phoenix damage than anything else. Twig, you're right on top of a ward. They know exactly where you are standing. But I like this level of aggression from the game.
Oh, no, he
This
did
split-
it!
What a pull!
Oh, what a pull onto Sam, and he gets the kill as well. Genetics opens up what might be the final push of the game for the Camelot Kings. That is 1 minute's time without Sam for Soccer. There are 4 more nails left to be hammered into the coffin, and it's everyone else but Sam for Soccer and the Jade Dragons. Left side Phoenix looked at now. The split push cancellation ever so much harder. Captain Twig can walk on in to the mid lane Phoenix. Here, another pull on to Final K. And this Cthulhu's got to get something done. He's done well to keep Netrioid out of this fight, who will have to dash away. Will Final K survive? For the time being, the answer is yes. Big Stygian Torment onto Genetics. Panda Cat is full HP in this fight as well, and the Dragons have done well.
And this is where, look, that Aussie passive, it's about to re-proc potentially here. At least Netroid, yeah, is going to be able to use that. Look at that health bar fill up just off of the jungle
Ooh-wee.
minions. That's what you want. When you have Aussie,
Oh, that
that
feels
is what
bad.
you get. You get the full reset,
They're
you get
right
to come
back
right
to
back
full.
in.
Right back to full HP. Good strike from Big Man Tings onto Polar Bear Mike in the mid lane. Captain Twig walks towards Final K. The left side Phoenix crumbles. 5 seconds left on the respawn from Sam for Soccer. The Dragons have lost their left side Phoenix, but they've done enough to give their jungler another chance.
A minute left for the Fire Giant to work with, so they need to be able to get aggressive here. But Final's just such a huge target. It's a problem.
Right.
I don't know what word to use for him. That's not
He's
true.
an
I know
issue.
the word I want to use, but broadcast can't let me use it. He is causing trouble for the Kings. And it's making it a lot more difficult to get into this Phoenix line, especially now that it's 5-on-5 with Sam coming back. The 10 steps it took to get back onto the Phoenix. Means Netroid needs to be very careful here. Relics are available for him. Twig still has his beads.
Yep.
And that helps control the pace that the Dragons are going to be able to set. But you can tell they're waiting to retaliate. They are not going to engage.
Oh, in goes Genetics. Double knockup from the Sylvanas. And then the pull on to Final K. The Cthulhu's been at the forefront of every fight, but he's watching from the sidelines under what might be the final fight of the game. Panda Cat walks away from Variety, but look at the health bars of the Kings. They look a lot better. Sam for Soccer, he's about to go back in. He's gotten the kill on Netroid. Bloodforge proc, that's huge in keeping this Tsukiyomi on the map, but he's not on the map for much longer. Traded back by the Camelot Kings, but Twig left running. Final K re-engages. The Jade Dragons have done it. They've kept their base alive.
And that Phoenix is so close to dead, but it's not gone. Tings has to stay alive here. If Tings goes down, the Dragons are going to be able to win this easily by running down
Then
mid.
they gotta chase,
They
right?
have to keep them from backing. They have to stop this reset. Otherwise, it's going to be a slowdown. And luckily, you get just away. With Tings alive, you have enough here that they aren't just going to run into your base. The bad news is you are missing for 30 seconds Netroid, 40 seconds Twig, and that Fire Giant's about to come back up.
That was huge from Sam for Soccer, finding an opening kill in that fight. Good to mention the Bloodforged here, Gore, where it's all about getting that reset for Sam. If you can get in, and that might allow Sam to play a bit more aggressively, right? If you're Sam and you get a piercing moonlight opportunity to finish off a kill, when you've got the Bloodforge in the back pocket, that might give you the confidence to go in and finish someone from the Camelot Kings when otherwise you might not feel comfortable.
And it opens up not just the opportunities, but I mean, his survival capabilities. Granted, we didn't get to see it there, but there are times where you're going to get a pick, whether or not it just is the difference of, okay, now you can stick to Twig a little bit longer.
Or you can stay back there,
But you're
right?
going to be able to potentially live through an engagement, back off. You don't necessarily have a lot of healing on your team, but you've got your Bumbas there. You just go back into the jungle, maybe try to farm up. At this point, there are no camps on the map. Bad example, but, you know, you get the point.
I get it.
There's something
I get it.
theoretically somewhere. And now you're going to have to do it. Good news is that you do have the full grouping from the Kings.
Left side, fire minion waves are pushing in, 2 of them towards the Jade Dragon's base. And there's a little bit of time before you have to worry about that. The mid wave is going to be easy enough to deal with unless Captain Twig decides he wants to just walk into mid lane and deal with the mid Phoenix on his own, which is a viable option here. But the timer's starting to run out here, Gore. The Jade Dragons, they had a bit of an advantage numbers-wise. Somebody's got to go back to base and deal with both of these fire waves. And right now, it's Sanford Soccer. This is a big jungle 1v1 waiting right around the corner here. Could be the fate of the game lying on these two, Sanford Soccer versus Captain Twig. They will meet face-to-face beneath the left side Phoenix. Sanford Soccer misses with the engage. Oh my god! Captain Twig evaporates Sanford Soccer 43 minutes into the game.
And it's not just the kill. What matters now is someone has to back off. They could kill Twig here. It doesn't matter.
They're giving up the fire.
They're going to be able to get the Fire Giant for free, and that opens up the re-engage on the Phoenix and the mid-Phoenix.
Can you even get Twig? No, Captain Twig will walk out just fine. Captain Twig at 9-9-5 has come alive in this game after starting off like 0-4 or something like that.
If they can kill Sam 3 more times, he gets a triple-double.
Yeah, we're getting close, and if you can kill Twig once more, Twig is the closest one. He could die, get a kill, and 4 assists in this. Oh no, you gotta get 5 assists. You might get there. But into the base of the Jade Dragons go the Camelot Kings. 4 nails in the coffin, as I've mentioned before. They still stand, and it's the same ones as last time. And the Camelot Kings will walk in with a great chance to start off their weekend with an incredible win over one of the teams that are neck and neck, chasing down that 1st or 2nd seed. Final K dashes forward. Frenzy gets used by Genetics. And descending into madness is Fine OK, who's got big man Tings with a little bit of damage onto the backline. Variety is over here on left. Look out for Captain Twig. Assassinate, waiting in the wings. And Captain Twig walks in. Titan not being looked at. Instead, it's the health bars of the Jade Dragons. Genetics is low. Sanford Soccer goes through. Hurrywin with a big bit of defense. Big man Tings onto the Titan. The Camelot Kings
oh my God!
are not able to get it done. Are you kidding me? The Jade Dragons stand tall. Unreal quad from Panda Cat. Unbelievable. Jade Dragons live on.
But they still have so many minions to deal with. They've got fire minions that are coming in.
I'm gonna
They've
throw
got
up.
trouble.
What is that?
They
That's
have
gross.
to defend. But they've
Disgusting,
got
Panda
50
Cat.
seconds? Yeah, I think if you can push these wave back once, you'll still have 30 seconds to work with. Oh, but they don't have a lot of damage. They have Raijin only. I don't know that they can end here. I don't think they can turn it around. I think they have to wait. And this is the hell position to be put in. All of your Phoenixes are down. Nobody on the other team is even alive, but your Titan is so low that until one of those comes back, you have to be standing vigilant. You need ward coverage all around there. You have to be able to catch them. You do not want to be caught after they respawn anywhere past your tier 2 tower line, because they could potentially just walk in, and probably will just walk in to end the game. What a nuts defense. And yet you're
That is gross.
still on the razor's edge here if you're the Dragons.
In Gore, I mean, that oh, we've been able to catch our breath now for a moment. We're what, 45 minutes into to the what could be the final game here. And here's where it now starts to feel awkward for the Dragons, is you're dealing with Captain Twig, who has the ability to just walk into your base and might just have enough damage to kill off the Titan. We get to look back at exactly what Panda Cat did here. Great use of the ultimate. And my goodness, Gore. I mean, you are playing razor-thin margins. He does die, but not without dealing damage of 4 and nearly all 5 kills in that fight.
One day we're gonna get a Penta this year, right? Like that's like the 5th quadra kill we've gotten.
Yeah, we've gotten a whole lot of quads. Unfortunate for Panda that it's not all 5. But realistically, though, looking at the pace of this game, really the positioning of the game is where I'm concerned for the Jade Dragons moving forward. You got all 3 Phoenixes down. Your Titan is like a breath of hell. You know, stiff breeze rolls through
Twig
your base
can
and
just
it's dying.
stealth
Twig can
through
walk
the jungle,
in.
walk
Absolutely.
into boom.
And so if you're the Dragons, you've got to maximize now every every moment of time you have on the map with everyone dead of the Camelot Kings. And then moving forward, you've got to take these fights out of your base because there's no way with how low the Titan is you can do that again.
Yeah, you have to, again, ward coverage is important. You cannot really leave your base at this point until one of your Phoenixes come back. It is a hell on earth position to be put in because there is not a lot that you can do to defend here outside of the standard, which is to say, push these waves up. They've done a great job. Look, Right's already back at the tier 2 side of the Kings. You've got mid clashing in the mid
Phoenixes
of the map. And then
so long.
clashing in the tier 1 side for the Kings. So they've got a while for the fire minions to do a lot of work. I'm not worried about the fire minions right now, Dave. I'm worried about literally everything else that could just make it in there.
You know what I'm concerned about?
It's so low.
I mean, this game has been incredible. Let me say that. This has been so much fun to watch. Here's what I'm concerned about. The most unceremonious ending possible is Captain Twig just walking into the base and auto-attacking it on down.
They know where he is.
They do know where Captain Twig is. But this 1v1 didn't go Twig's way last time. Piercing Moonlight starts it off from Sanford Soccer. Assassinate out from Captain Twig as Sanford Soccer overstepped, dodges out the apple. That is absurd. That Sanford Soccer dodges that one, but dodge it out he does. And this is huge. Now the Jade Dragons have the space to push out forward.
Look, if the Dragons can win a fight out here without worrying about the fire minions, they win the game. That is the key for them. But they have to be so cautious of this. I mean, that Titan is low. And look at left. It's already getting pushed up way further than they'd like. Right, something they have to deal with. Mid, something they're having to deal with. And Twig only loses his ult there. He doesn't lose his beads. He doesn't use his blink. And so he's still in a great position to continue fighting.
This is so awkward. I don't know, the Jade Dragon, it's kind of awkward right now. All of the Camelot Kings just walking down mid lane, and the Jade Dragon so separated. Netrioid dashes around the left, is fine, okay, pops his ultimate. Poor Bear Mike alone in the backline here. The Camelot Kings turn their eyes towards the support of the Jade Dragons. Netrioid's got the first. Big Man Tings has got the second. Hurrywin with the Taiko drums needs to get one here, but he won't. The Camelot Kings come damn near close to finishing it last time. And they will finish it this time. Panda Cat got a quad. I don't think he's got a chance at a penta here. The Camelot Kings, they slip a bit, but they will deal the 2-0 to the Jade Dragons.
I'm going to call him out. You were close, Twig. You almost got the triple-double. Last person to do it, I believe last fall, was Sam. They don't come often, but he's still short of it. Same thing there for Sam. Very close to getting it, but not able to do so. So it's fun to watch, man. I mean, that was a really ridiculous back-and-forth game. And if the Dragons are put in, with even just one Phoenix still alive at the end there, they're at least able to fight back. With 3 Phoenixes down, having to juggle all of the macro play of look at the left side minions, right side minions, all of these fire minions. Like you said, the Kings are just steadily walking down mid. They're not trying to make any flashy play. They're not fooling you, drawing you into an ambush. They're just saying, we know where we're going. It's the Titan straight down there. Good luck stopping us.
That might have been one of the best, like, 11 and 10 performances I've seen from a jungler from Captain Twig. Twig puts on a masterclass. Panda Cat with some magic. Unable to repeat that performance, though. The Camelot Kings start off this weekend in the SPL in pretty incredible fashion. 2-0 over the Jade Dragons. Gore and I will take a break, and then the desk will round this one out.
Take it too far now. I dwell in the sand like a fish on land. like a fish on land. I started to get lost at the station where you left. Everything was falling off. Who am I without this man? Oh, fingers crossed at any cost. Knock, knock on wood. I hope I'm better off. I would kick your if I could, but I'm deep, deep down on the bottom of a well. I don't belong, can't you tell? This place must be hell. No more cookies in this jar. Did I take it too far? Now I dwell in the sand like a fish on land. 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 I was getting lost in the quicksand. Pink clouds eating their way into my head. On and on until I'm bled. Superstitious, kind of vicious. Oh, knock, knock on wood. I was getting lost. And before I understood, I was deep, deep down on the bottom of a well. Seagrass was all I found. An alternative hell. No more cookies in this jar. Did I take it too far? Now I dwell in the sand like a fish on land. But I'm deep, deep down on the bottom of a well. I don't belong, can't you tell? This place must be hell. No more cookies in this jar. Did I take it too far? Now I dwell in the sand like a fish on land.
Hey, wait, what did it win?
You win the respect.
Telling me an alien wore this?
Perfect. Okay.
Okay, that was a good cut.
Messaging him to mute.
The best graphics you really need, ultra, of course, and I can probably watch a stream on the side.
Content's gonna look good.
Pretty good, pretty good.
Well, they're not on here on the battleground facing off. You can find all the behind-the-scenes action with our pros over on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/SmitePro. 1v1s, interviews, just kind of kicking it back and talking with the pros in general for any kinds of check-ins and anything else that may come through. So if you want to catch all of that action, be sure to go over to youtube.com/SmitePro and see what's going on all behind the scenes. But no more behind the scenes. Let's talk about what happened there in game number 2, Mifflin. Back and forth pretty much the entirety of the game. Looked like the Dragons were maybe going to run away with it after the Fire Giant, and then Camelot Kings just kind of fight right back and do it to them. And man, that last little engagement, not the one immediately that won the game at the Titan, but that back and forth at the Dragons Titan room, just insane.
I called GG at 5 minutes. I said, okay, Sanford Soccer's like 4-0 at the 5-minute mark. No shot that there's any comeback mechanic here for the Camelot Kings. But despite all that, despite the Jade Dragons having such a commanding lead in kills throughout the early game, they weren't able to find any of these objectives. I think at most it was like a 2, maybe 3,000 gold lead for the Jade Dragons. And the Camelot Kings, as far as farm and experience was concerned, were always in it. But this play right here might have been my standout for the entirety of the game. I called GG right here, too. I got to stop calling GG clearly. Sanford Soccer pulled through the wall and immediately shut down by Genetics. The Camelot Kings just utilize superior map presence. There was a point in the game where 4 members of the Kings were grouped up on the Fire Giant, and Captain Twig was over on the left-hand side alone and removed Sanford Soccer from the map. Survives a 3-man rotation a little bit later on, and it was just a general thorn in the side of the Jade Dragons throughout the entirety of this one. I think that the Jade Dragons probably learned their lesson. They banned the Loki in game 1. They say, okay, well, he didn't need the Loki to beat us. I think maybe he should have stayed banned in game 2.
Yeah, I mean, it was a clinic is the best way to describe how Captain Twig kind of put on the last half of the game. Just short of the triple-double, but him and both Sam were very close to that triple-double. Captain Twig's the one who comes out on top, 11, 10, and 8. Sure, a lot of deaths, but I mean, just in those last couple of clips alone that we saw, it was Twig literally just walking up to whoever he wanted to that wasn't a full tank and erasing them. And you can see that reflected in the damage. 44,000, and he just barely eked that past Big Man Tings at 43,500 player damage on this Discordia. Yeah, assassins might need to be taken away from Twig entirely. Maybe you just kind of give up all 5s and just ban the entire assassin tree. Maybe that's the way that you beat Captain Twig here on the Camelot Kings. But a stellar performance out of him, out of his mid lane, out of the team in general, and Genex did break the Sylvanas first pick curse. Finally got its first win here as a first pick god.
Let's go from 0% to like 5%. I don't know how what the percentages actually are, but man, that Twig gameplay, it's not often that an assassin in general puts out top damage on the charts, right? When an assassin engages, generally, you're removing somebody from the map immediately. At most, like 3, maybe 4,000 damage if someone's going for an HP build, but 45-ish thousand damage coming out from this Loki, that is so impressive. Not only was he being a thorn in the back line, but he was also legitimately the highest damage output for his team. Ban it. Every other team in the league, let this be a notice. Ban it.
Yeah, forget the Hoonbots. It's all about this Loki ban up here against Captain Twig. Let's talk to him just a little bit. And in celebrations of your win over to the day, Captain Twig, congrats on your win over the Dragons. A big one for you. Tell me a little bit about it. You know, we talked to you last time, you know, in the previous week. You're like, I don't know about the Assassins, not that great on them. You're fooling me out. I think you're fooling everybody out here, Captain Twig. How you feeling about the Assassins now?
I'm feeling a lot better. I think my plays are a lot cleaner. I know my damage a lot better. And, you know, I said it a few weeks ago, and it has been a couple weeks now, and I said it's going to take me a couple weeks before. And, you know, I like to stay versatile. I like to play the meta and just play what is the best to play. And I'm arriving somewhere close to what I think is the best thing to do.
Well, I mean, hey, it's working out for you. When you can put up 44,000 damage on a Loki in a single game, I mean, more power to you. Talk to me a little bit about this Discordia that big man teams really seems to love. I mean, at this point, maybe just, you know, for my money's worth, but this is getting up there in gods that we might be seeing maybe a little bit more from you guys. Maybe see some teams ban this one away from you.
Yep. I mean, Big Man's kind of weird. He's got a funky god pool, and he's just randomly really, really good at some characters. Like, for example, Ra, I think he was owning on earlier in this year, and Discordia happens to be one of the gods that he's owning on right now. And it's easier to just let him do what he wants to do, and kind of let him be a strength rather than force him onto maybe characters that don't make as much sense.
Yeah, you guys look real comfortable in your matchup. Talk a little bit about that early game. You know, Sam kind of gets off to a tear, you know, 4 or 5-0 before the game's through. What are the comms kind of like to kind of, wrangle you guys back all together?
Well, to be honest, they're always fine. Obviously, we're not going to be the happiest, and we're going to be a bit grumpy over little misplays that have turned into more misplays, which have turned into more deaths. And, you know, it's bad. But to be honest, our scrims give us the best preparation for that, because we don't have a single good early game in scrims, and we're used to being that like 2k, 3k behind and XP behind, and knowing that we have to give stuff up. And that's kind of where maybe we're at, like, our element, I guess. So I guess we've got prep for it.
Well, you guys look good today. Congratulations on your win. I'll let you get back with the team so you guys can celebrate.
Thank you.
It's an interesting one to note there is that they're very comfortable being down in that 2,000-3,000 or so gold behind. Maybe something that some teams take notes on here against the Kings. Maybe you don't put them behind immediately early, but at the same time, you probably don't want to let them get ahead either. Either way, Camelot Kings coming out looking strong here in this game against the Dragons. That'll bump them up a little bit the standings and also bump those Dragons down just a tad bit as well.
Yeah, and bumps up some of these percentages for the caster guesses, right? Oh, wait, no, just one. Just me.
I was waiting for it.
Yeah,
Honestly, I'm surprised you took this long to actually say anything about it. I'm surprised you didn't open the desk with it. Let's take a look at the schedule, see what we've got for the rest of the day. It's the Atlantis Leviathans and the Oni Warriors will be our second match coming up immediately after this one. The Atlantis Leviathans looking to extend that 4-0 to potentially 5-0, or maybe the Warriors can go ahead and shut that one down. Taking a look at the standings now at the Camelot Kings and their victory, able to kind of jump themselves up a couple of spots here, put them right behind Leviathans at 4-2 versus the 4-0, but we still got quite a few teams. We need to get a couple more games under their belts to kind of put it up there. Tartarus Titans right behind them, hot on their heels at 3-1, have potential to take that second seed. But Camelot Kings, after a game and a performance like that out of their mid laner, out of their jungler, really out of the whole team entirely, it's hard to pick a single player from that team and go, yeah, that was an MVP, because there was play after play from all... I mean, that was a sick pull from Genetics on the Sylvanas.
Yeah, but Twig, like, deleted people on his own.
He did.
And he had the most kills.
Okay.
And he's the jungler.
Sure. Okay, because of the jungler. That you got to throw that last little tie in there. But Camelot Kings with a big win today. We're going to take it to a quick break. We'll get you guys set up for game number 2.